Hi, everybody. Welcome to Stat Check. This is episode 42. Winnis. Try to actually make the punctuation work there, I guess. I am joined, as always, by Jeremy, Anthony, and Ines. Well, almost always, but most of the time, like 95% of the time. Sometimes they're not. Frequently. Periodically. I don't know. So, yeah. I think we'll start with people who are not in us to talk about weekends before we go into the show, since I feel like we're going to be featuring Ines quite heavily this week from a talking perspective. So, Anthony, how was your weekend?
Fucking uneventful by the standards of the group, god damn it. Except for the part on Thursday where I jokingly was like, I'll fly to Manchester if Anna approves it, then someone's paid for it. And then Anna approved it, but no one paid for it. So thankfully I got to stay in the States and not endure a whole bunch of time damage and flight fuckery at the 1 yard line. So that was pretty good. Things are going to be pretty uneventful for me for the most part for a while. USA started their scrims with Poland, which was cool. With Netherlands and Northern Ireland, I think, is going now. And then that is like the end of the USA external scrim process for a little bit until we, or probably even after we get 10th rules, because at that point it's secrets time. And since the Euros won't invite us to any of their fun tournaments, fuck them. So yeah, it's been fun. Mostly just doing Team USA stuff, not really doing anything else. I'm coaching, doing chill at home stuff. I'm literally not playing a tournament until June, so it's just like, all right, just hanging out until we hit KC.
I mean, that sounds pretty nice, actually, given that we're kind of in. Yeah, the tournament scene has kind of started to hit the ebb kind of part of the death knell a little, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was feeling some of the like late edition, like chilling out. It's definitely showed in coaching, that's for sure. The rate of like helping folks out has definitely slowed down a fair bit. So yeah, but yeah, that's been things have been good.
How about you, Jeremy? How was your weekend?
It was quiet, which is nice because the last few weekends have been very, very hectic. This weekend was nice and chill. I mostly did cleaning, actually, which was very boring. The most exciting part of the weekend was Monday when I watched Innes go through his last 3 rounds on stream.
Wow, that was so fucking stressful.
And he practically gave me a fucking heart attack in that last round by taking shock tactics.
Yeah, I was like at the event stressed while I was watching.
Yeah,
I was like the person playing stressed watching.
I was coach player needs an 11 stressed.
Yeah. Yep. Needs an 11 is the worst because it's not like get points, but it's not like push, so it's pretty free and he'll get home a bunch, but you're not sure how many. Needs an 11 is like, no,
exactly.
Win.
That was my weekend. What about yourself, Nathan?
It was also a quiet weekend. I didn't have any events, so I was just hobbying all weekend instead. So I have like 2 tournaments essentially before the end of the edition. So I have one at the end of May, which is just an RTT, and then I'm trying to figure out the last one still. We're going to see what happens. Stuff may happen. Who knows? Maybe I'll fly to Canada. I don't know. It's all a mystery.
None of it to Canada.
Well, that would be a post 10th.
Yeah, your last option for 9th is this weekend.
Not doing that, though, unfortunately.
I invited Anthony, but he said he didn't want to come.
Oh,
listen,
dang, Anthony.
What do you want me to do? I can only travel so much.
I feel like that's a lie. You should just travel all the time. You should be like Joe from War Games Live, but playing 40K while working remote from a van.
See, there's only a couple problems with that. One is that, unfortunately, Anna's job is not remote. 2, I don't know if you know this, but 40K doesn't actually pay that well for the doing good part. I'd have to rally up some form of Patreon fan base that's like, yeah, go play events that we can't watch or something. It'd be really strange.
True.
Just put a GoPro on your forehead the entire thing. Like,
I got the real estate. So
that's what we should do for one event, is just create the Anthony stream and stream you on.
Oh God.
On our
we did that for
GoPro.
One of the Magic Pro Tours. They did like GP Reed Duke, who's like one of their really good top players. They just every single game was his game. They're just like, we're just gonna watch this guy's tournament. And it was like for like what you would call like I suppose we would call like a major level event as opposed to like a super major. It was pretty cool. People seem to respond to it pretty well. So
yeah,
hey,
I
Ryan,
would.
what else you got to?
Yeah, I would absolutely get it demonetized like immediately. Too.
Yeah, of course.
Just out of the problem.
I guess I also started playing my first team event over TTS with a group of people from the Discord. So we're playing against 3 European teams essentially, which is interesting. 8-person teams, and I'm playing guard in that, which is funny because I'm playing like Iron Hands for practice, so it's a little different. That's about it. That's what's going on. I have 2 games this week for that.
Did you get to experience the true joy of you being like, all right, any matchup except this one? And then your captain's like, bet, here you go. That one on the board you told me not to put you on.
I definitely got some of my pairings and was like, I did put this in as a positive, but I didn't know that you were going to actually test that positive out all the way.
Oh my god, what? What do you mean?
No, I'm kidding. I put down like the best of my abilities, my understandings of matchups, and I definitely got put into some good matchups where I was like, oh, now I need to actually think about 100% of how I will win on this table instead of in theory.
Well,
I also
would be to not pick shock tactics.
Yeah.
Well, I can't pick shock tactics as an Astra Militarum player, but I would just for you. No, I'm playing guard in the TTS thing, but I'm
okay. You should play flexible command, boots on the ground, and X.
Yeah, that's basically my plan. I have Thousand Suns paired into me for 1 round, Necrons for another one, and I think it's Chaos Demons Big Boys for a 3rd one.
Chris hates you.
He might.
His opponents. Those are fine, except for Necrons.
The Necrons is double Catan, so I'm just gonna plop like a unit of Casterkin near a Finial and like watch 2 Catan explode.
Yeah.
And amuse myself endlessly.
Yeah, remember that the mortal wounds are applied at the end. So if you kill that cunt on the first set of bullets, the mortal wounds can just go into the other one.
Yep, got to track it. Got to keep an eye on it, basically. Also have to try not to get teleport insertion guide. Can't remember his name. There it is.
Octopuses.
Got to try not to get hex marked, which is another thing to try. Yeah, other than that, it sounds like it's going to be fun. I get to play against some people in a team format that I've never tried before. Chris didn't pair me into any World Eaters players, which is kind of what I didn't want. I was like, please don't do this to me. This is the only thing I don't want to play into.
I mean, it's a waste of guard, but it's not an L.
No, but I really just don't want to, because if you get that, don't get first turn and you deploy like slightly improperly, you can just get like...
Yeah, you can get like pasted, but...
turboed off the board.
The real question is, do you have 15 Ratlings in your list?
No.
Stop doing that.
I have two units of 3 Scout Sentinels. Is
my
line
forward deploy. Off you if you play World Eaters.
No. The funny thing to do is to win the go first roll off and win the redeployment roll off, because in the WTC that final phase is not player going first, go first. It's you roll off, and the player who wins the roll off gets to choose who does it first. So you, as the guard player with 15 Ratlings across the board, tell the World Leader player, do your pregame. You can't move past this point.
Anywhere.
And I experienced the joy of an Eldar player telling me they were going to roll their fate dice as their second thing in that instance. I'm like,
I love that example.
I mean, I was just going to put 2 units of 3 Scout Sentinels there and then redeploy them if I needed to. That was the plan.
Yeah, it's like, so he like redeployed to block me, then I moved some bikes, and he went, okay, I'm gonna roll fate dice now, and you can move another squad of bikes, then I'll do my shroud run. I was like, fuck you.
Krur actually
in the WTC FAQ as an example. It's so dumb.
You deserve a slap for that.
Jeremy,
I understand that it's allowed. I just don't have to like it.
Krur has a good question in chat that's actually just an FAQ thing that I don't know about.
Has the Hex Mark Etheric Interception been FAQ to work with movement phase-based reinforcements? I honestly don't know, but I would probably play it rolls as intended, which
every Necron player does it, so I assume it probably doesn't work.
It's like veiling a monolith.
Yanari, wrong faction.
Yeah, or veiling a monolith, or building your Tesseract vault.
The funny thing to do in pregame is
open.
The funny thing to do in pregame is choose the Custodes Auric Mortalis target.
Oh yeah.
So you're gonna redeploy? No, that's the unit I want to kill.
Nah, fuck that guy.
Do your redeploy, then I'll do mine.
I actually love that one. That's great. That's the Trixie business I signed up for when I joined this.
Or Tau. Are you Monka or Kayun?
They picked that pregame?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
otherwise, how
after-
would they be able to do 3 redeploys?
It was a joke.
Cool. I thought actually they had to pick it during your turn too when they realized which one they want. But
All right. We got to get to the highlight,
No, we don't.
the
It's
headliner of our episode this week,
people are
which
still
is
trickling in. It's
Winnis Wilson talking about how his weekend went, and then we can deep dive it later.
cool. So I actually had a really uneventful weekend. My Monday, however, was bananas.
I see.
Yeah, how's that
Um,
your
Your
sound
Sunday
on
was
Monday?
a bye. I'm playing a kid, beating up some crew, just chilling on the weekend.
Well, no, they to be fair, my game path was 6 fairly comfortable games, a child, then Brian and David Gaylord. So like
Not a nice way to refer to Nos. That's not a
Yeah.
nice way to refer to Nos at all. Deep
so
love
I'll
Nos.
go into it a little bit. So I was at Warhammer Fest this weekend, as some people might have gathered from the everything about everything right now. It's been nice. It's been a good time. So I took Iron Hands down to the tournament. It was a 3-day, 368 player tournament by my memory on the GW Open Terrain. It's like 360, 370. I've been saying 370 because it makes me feel better. But I would like to run up to 400 because that feels even better. But
Do it. Just
the-
round up. It's fine. Nobody
It
will
was
check.
like basically 1,000 people. Same order of magnitude, right? So I took Iron Hands to that. It was on the GW terrain, so we played day 1 on layout 3, which is hell terrain for hell people, which was amazing for me. I really enjoyed the game I played against Yunari, where they could stand on one objective or part of the board, which was that objective. It wasn't in line of sight of my army. That was great. I really, really liked that.
Was that a hold 2 mission by any chance?
I was abandoned sanctuary, so they couldn't even try to run at me.
Oh,
It's rude. Just
Um,
rude.
So yeah, layer 3 is interesting. It's really strange terrain. So my day 1, I'm not going to go through games just now. We'll do that a little bit later. Day 2 and day 3 were on the GW layout 2 terrain, which you'll probably remember from being the normal one. The one that me and Anthony spoke about in that episode before I came to America for like 20 minutes. Where it's basically just like 2 ruins in each half of the board, and you stare at each other because nobody can move without dying. And the middle objective is a burning hellscape of crisis suits jump 18 at you, or like you just die. You don't go to the middle in GW layout 3. It's on GW 2. It's a bad place. Where I played 6 more games there, and I did manage to somehow, despite my best efforts, win the tournament.
It was the last game, bro. The Eldar game, clean piloting, everything looked good. Game 3.
Buddy, the Eldar game was so much more sketch. That's the most unbelievable part. The Eldar game was like 4 layers of Brian failing things. The David game was completely in my control the entire game.
Yeah, except for the secondary selection part where you just fucking.
No, I was comfortable on those too. It was fine.
Sure.
I never doubted it.
We'll deep dive that in a
Deep dive
second.
after.
We can
Yeah.
do that later.
All right, let's talk about stats from the weekend where I can tell you something really funny that is mostly Innis's fault.
It's partially
then-
Innis's fault.
I'm
It's
giving
25% his fault.
It's 25%.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say that's most since we're rounding up in weird ways today. That's fine.
When did we become Iron Hands apologists? The weekend that I was half of Harlequin's fucking rep, it didn't count.
I mean, we could go back retroactively. I'll just put an edit in the show notes that says this is partially Anthony's fault, I guess. Like, I'll go back and do that. I'll just go back
I'm sorry, I
and
think
do
you can
it.
just like blame most things as being Anthony's fault. I think the Iron Hands thing is Anthony's fault as well because he didn't make the money from the play Tyranids.
Honestly, I think we'll raise hands. Who, by count of hands, says that everything is just Anthony's fault now?
This works like Alpine.
3 out of 4 people. Oh, Anthony even raised
His
his
hands
hand.
are up.
Even Anthony blames himself. All right, so we've voted Anthony is just to blame. Good job, everybody. That's democracy at work. All right, now for stats, because I know that's actually why 90% of people watch us, not for us and our nonsense, right? I don't know.
I think it's
Nathan
the other way
Reed's
around.
spreadsheet definitely is popular.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ignore the White Scars stuff at the top and the Death Watch stuff at the top because it's less than 10 people. You fine, Anthony.
The what?
White
Oh, yeah.
Scars.
The who?
White Scars had 3 players for a 0.4% representation, and they had a 68% win rate.
Fuck
Go on,
yeah.
Rap.
3.8. Sorry. But nobody top 4 or top 10, so they have a 0 for overrep despite their win rate.
Fucking failures.
Turns
Deathwatch
out when
had
there's only 4 people out of 380 at a tournament that can have an overrep position. It's not the best representation.
no. Deathwatch had 7 players, or 1% of the meta for the weekend, and had a
Was one of those
60% win rate. 0 event wins, 0 top 4s, and 0 top
No,
10s
they
for a
came
0
second
overrep
at,
again for
didn't they come
Deathwatch.
second at Warhammer Fest? I seem to recall that being on BCB.
Oh, you're right. That wasn't BCP. But unlike other people, we do check all your lists to make sure that they're accurate.
Well, we is a very loose term. Jeremy checks all
Jeremy checks it.
That side of the stream
Yeah.
checks.
Jeremy checks for us to make sure that we've not lost our minds on a regular basis. And then the
Failing
first
horribly.
and best performing faction of the weekend was Iron Hands. Disputably, win rate's not the best statistic for this, but we'll talk about it later. Iron Hands had 26 players, a 3.9% meta representation, a 59% win rate, 1 event win, 4 top 4s, 7 top 10s, and a 3.66 over rep ratio, which is an actually wild over rep ratio. That's entering Harlequin's Void Weaver pre-nerf range for over rep ratio on a weekly basis.
How many events were there this weekend? Do we have a?
I'll let Jeremy check it.
There were 7 events this
So
weekend.
there's 7 events.
And I will say right now, your event made up over half the players and something like 60% of the games this weekend.
Warhammer Fest by far sucked up like all of the games from the
Yeah,
weekend.
Warhammer
by
Fest was
itself.
like LVO in this case, where it's just a data point that makes up big chunk.
So we had it with 28 top 4 spots, of which Iron Hands made up roughly 16%.
4. Yeah.
Pretty good.
Gene Stealer Cult are the second best faction with more than 10 players. Anthony's just going to slowly combust in the corner.
It's
They
a good time to play my armies, isn't it?
have 14 players, 2.1% meta representation, also a 59% win rate, but only 1 top 10. So they had an overrep of 0 for the weekend.
Yeah, it's because
that
Malik,
win rate-
Porter, and Chewy all just left after they lost the game.
Yeah,
at
they
Warhammer
just
Fest.
biffed it.
Stop. They're just like, nah, we're good. They all had an internal competition for who could do the best with them as well.
Who won?
Chewy was the only one with big top 16, so
That makes sense then.
And then World Eaters are in a third of real represented factions with 31 players, a 4.6% meta representation, a 56.5% win rate. They actually won an event this weekend. They got a top 4 and 3 top 10s. So they have a 0.77 over rep.
Where
and congrats to
perfectly
Boris for
done
winning best overall at Warhammer Fest with them as well.
Yeah, they won best overall at Warhammer Fest. Boris, I can never pronounce his last name, Mishev.
Yeah.
He sent me a very nice message thanking me for assisting him in his World Leaders progress.
Hell yeah.
Amazing.
And I'll send him the
But,
screenshots of you describing how mad his play made you, and then we can take that back.
I mean, that player where he didn't tag the Catan made me irate, but it was okay. He won anyway. But where was the event that World Leaders won?
It was Winter War Fest in Australia.
Okay.
Oh.
It wasn't in England because I was going to make a joke about World Leaders winning events so long as all the good players in the country are somewhere else, but it didn't work. So never mind. Actually, was it in West Australia? Because then
That's a really good question. Let's find out.
The one thing is that it's always interesting to look
No,
at the
because Hackett's
distribution.
away at the moment as well, so if it was in East Australia, it doesn't matter either.
Well, no, because some of them they really don't play singles right now. Everyone's getting ready for the big team tournament.
It was in Queensland.
Fuck, ruined my joke. God damn
Yeah,
it.
sorry.
Next, we have Space
Anyway,
Wolves.
commit.
Space Wolves.
Ew.
26 players, 3.9% meta representation, a 56.5. There's a lot of 56.5s. Well, 2.
That's the same
There's a lot of
representation as
55
Iron
plus.
Hands. That's so cool.
1 top 4, 3 top 10s, and a 0.92 over rep. So balanced for Space Wolves, I guess.
That's exactly how I would describe them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way as their 8th unit that's fully loaded with Thunder Hammers hits you 40 times. You're like, what the fuck?
And then
Make
just
it
for
stop.
funsies, there are a couple armies that maybe are a little bit surprising. Adeptus Mechanicus is actually next in the list with 10 players, so just barely counting. 55.5% win rate, an event win, a top 4, and a top 10 for a 2. Well, those are all basically the same person. A 2.38 over rep ratio because there are so few of them playing. So, fun times to be an AdMech player. If just one of you wins, you get an awesome overrep ratio.
Was it Alex?
I actually don't know who it was. Who was it, Jeremy? Do you know?
Curious.
Do you remember?
You gotta look. Give me a second.
Meanwhile, while Jeremy looks up that, Chaos Demons, 53 players, 7.9% meta representation, a 54% win rate, and then they took home 2 of the events from the weekend. 3 top 4s, 7 top 10s, and a 1.35 for overrep. So Chaos Demons still putting in plenty of work.
Good job, TJ. Woo!
Yep.
And Hader.
Oh, Hader won too? Nice.
Hader did
Well-
well. Warhammer Fest.
Gotcha.
And
He
then
got
at the bottom,
most battle points, I think, of somebody who didn't win another award.
Beats his Chicago run. Sorry, I got you hung over twice, buddy.
at the very bottom, we have for factions with enough players to actually matter. Sorry, Crimson Fist and Imperial Fist players with your terrible win rates and 1 and 4 players. Tyranids had 27 players, 4% meta representation, and a 40% win rate. But they did take home an event, and they got a top 4 and 2 top 10. So they had a 0.88 meta rep.
What a confusing stat line that is. Win rate's garbage. The rep's pretty good. They won an event. What the fuck?
They're at the very bottom from win rate perspective. They are the worst performing faction from a win rate perspective. But they managed to win an event, so they did okay.
All right.
Rounding out
Already
the bottom
balanced.
5 are Sisters at a 40.5% win rate, but they top 4'd an event, so they had a 1.59 for overrep. Ultramarines were next at a 40.8, although I don't think they're going to stay this low for much longer based on that Gilliman preview. Although we won't have Ultramarines to track anymore, probably.
True.
Chaos Knights at a 2.7% meta rep, a 43.4, and a 0 for overrep because they didn't place. And then Death Guard, 20 players for the weekend, 3% meta representation, a 44.9, 1 top 4, 2 top 10. So they got a 1.19 for overrep.
Go, Rob.
So a lot of the factions in the bottom third actually still managed to get top 4 placements, which is kind of neat to see. But
Yeah.
other
The
than that,
stats
there's like
suggest a decent meta. The gameplay suggests something else. It's just
Yeah.
how it is right now.
Mhm. And that's just for the week. So there's like obviously some caveats to using the data to do this kind of like balance decisions about how things are balanced. But honestly, it doesn't look all that bad at the moment. Although we do have just some factions just doing weird and wild nonsense at the top.
For sure. But if you look at the metadata dashboard and look at the state of the game for the Q2 data slate, which at the moment is, I think, 18 events.
Yes.
So still fairly small, but that's about 1,400 players, I think, all told. It doesn't look terrible.
It doesn't.
Pretty bad.
I mean, there's some stuff hidden in some of those average win rates for
for
like
sure.
Iron Hands, for example, because Iron Hands have a 55% win rate, I think, on there. So just like barely at the edge of balance.
What's the pain stat?
But Iron
Master Artisans
Hands,
Whirlwind to Rage, a 67% win rate in Narcs.
Oh,
base
balance,
Iron
obviously.
Hands make
What
up
was it
most
last
of the
week?
representation. Like the largest chunk of it is Iron Hands, and it's a
What's it this
47% win rate. So it's like being offset hardcore by the people who are still dragging out normal Iron Hands instead of successors.
What was the successor like just last week? Out of curiosity, is that a thing we have?
We have it. Jeremy
Yeah.
will pull it up while I continue to expose the nonsense that's going on. Like White Scars are at a 56% win rate for the
Really?
bar.
So just Master Artisans Whirlwind of Rage last weekend was 60%.
Oh, even with a 9-0 in there, that's not too bad.
Yeah, Glark played them.
Oh, that's a balance.
Sorry, let me double check that. Sorry, no, it's 71%.
Oh,
there you go.
okay.
There you go. It's like 10 more
Okay.
percent tacked on. Thanks, Jeremy.
I,
Ramon, I
I,
was like,
clicked
oh,
the wrong
man.
date.
I mean, at the very top continues to be Gene Stealer Cult. Gene Stealer Cult are just sitting pretty at like they're over 60% win rate in the data dashboard since the
Not
QT did
want to
its
play
thing.
cults this weekend. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Those boards are kind of scuffed into cults.
Yeah, at the bottom of it is still Crimson Fist, Imperial Fist, Sisters, Ultramarines, Salamanders, and Tyranids, and then
Where
Chaos
they
Space
belong. It's
Marines.
a turn. It should be better.
And then because I think this is still just going to change as population increases for games, because you have essentially Iron Hands at the top of the 55 to 45, and at the bottom you have Death Guard, and that's just we're gonna see it distribute a little bit more correctly over the next couple of weeks, basically into the performance brackets that we just talked about. Because eventually Iron Hands players are going to realize they should just play successors. Eventually,
They're starting to
Instead of
this
almost-
I
weekend.
really don't think they will. I don't understand how, but
No, I actually disagree, because this weekend there was actually an equal number of Iron Hands and Iron Hand successor players. So they
it's only
finally
taken
are starting to
2
figure it out.
years.
Oh, I know. And after your success this weekend, some more will figure it out. So in like 2
Yeah,
weeks, we'll see
sure.
another bump.
Singles about to fucking suck for the next couple weeks, and
Repulsor sales
publicized that listed
insane.
everywhere.
I am
Guys,
so
spend 5 minutes,
glad.
go read the repulsor data sheet, figure out what it does. You're going to be getting shot by a lot of them in singles for the next couple of months, I hope.
They have so many guns.
They really do.
I honestly was putting one together and I was like, why are there so many guns? Why are there 5 different missile launcher options to slap on this turret? It's just every single surface that has room has a gun on it.
I just put all
It
of them
is
on, and I'm
a
like,
little
it has
silly.
these ones.
It's fair. You could just do that. Like, the only thing I was considering even magnetizing was just the las cannons on front, because I was like, I guess somebody might complain that las cannon looks like a heavy bolter, but otherwise nobody's going to know an Icarus launcher from a crack storm grenade launcher at any point.
I
in their
will.
life.
No,
You
won't.
don't even know. You don't even know.
No, I
Which
don't.
one's the crack storm grenade launcher, NS?
The Crackstorm's the one that's like the fucking 3 in a row. It's a 3x1. The Fragstorm is the 6x2. Is the 3x2.
Damn it, he does know. Shit.
That's
Fine.
Advanced nerdism, all right?
Damascus Steel, a weaponized
Damascus
offensive.
Steel. Yeah.
It's fair. Innes has probably looked at more repulsors than I have in my entire life.
Can
I have played a
Steel-
tournament game with 5 of them and against 5 of them.
There
Do
you
you
go.
think we get in trouble if our Alpine team name is Damascus Steel or Spectrum Warriors?
I think Damascus Steel will be okay. I don't think anybody could possibly take umbrage with that unless they knew what we were taking the piss out of.
Isn't
which is me, so
Spectrum
that's
Warriors
fine.
a video game?
Yeah, exactly. See?
Oh, okay. I'm
No, we've already agreed that
confused.
your stud check next year.
Stud check and Speedos. You guys did this to yourselves.
Yes, that's good.
And Disflux, we did just finish the stats, unfortunately. We're talking about
Bounce back on the YouTube video. And
We're
you
talking
could
about how
literally watch it
nobody
a few times
knows-
to catch up, but don't do that.
Nobody knows any weapons on any models ever. Like, somebody was talking to me about Ravener chest weapons. I'm like, nobody's gonna know, bud. It's a chest. Nobody even knows which one of the 2 chest pieces is which weapon.
They have
In
chest
it,
weapons?
they do. That's where you're supposed to put their ranged weapons, is in their chest.
Yeah, or what you could do is you could use third edition metal ones and just give them the range, give them the regular guns.
You
like
could
I did.
also do that. Yes, you could use the old metal ones instead.
Yeah, they're so much bigger, by the way. Definitely don't do that.
They're also like very strange looking, the old metal snake ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look
Okay.
awful. I love them so much.
All right. Is there anything else we want to touch on from stats this weekend? I think we basically covered it. The only thing I didn't talk about was Drukari getting a 2.98 for over rep ratio, but that's because they got 2 top 4s and have a 2.4% meta representation.
Oh, okay, sure.
It's like hyper inflated. It's not for any other reason other than that. I guess for that same reason, there's a 3.97 for Salamanders, because they had 6 players
And they won an event.
and they won an
They won an
event.
My fucking
So-
Pacific Northwest boys let them win an event with firstborn salamanders. God damn it, boys. I just work
So
here.
Salamanders had a higher over rep ratio than Iron Hands just because of that, basically.
We're
'cause
not
there were
even that good,
6 of
guys.
them.
Just chill out.
All right, so I guess we can transition into the bulk of the content for this week, which is just having Winnis Wilson
No,
talk
no, no, no,
about
no,
his
no, no,
winnings.
no, 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 no,
No?
Hold one goddamn
What?
second. That fucking launch box.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. We could talk about that first. Let's talk about 10th edition launch box first.
Just for like 2 minutes, so I can say
We
how
can
much
talk
I
about it.
goddamn love Tyranids.
yeah, they're
I love every model in that box
They're
so
cool.
much.
it made me upset that the Screamer Killer looks as cool as it does, because I know in my heart of hearts, having done this once already, that it's gonna be shit. So like
you're gonna
it's
get building
it's
blocked.
gonna, it's gonna break my fucking heart that thing looks that cool and fucking blows, and I'm gonna get on the table and be like, come on, and it's just gonna suck, and I'm gonna be really sad.
I'm gonna have to figure out how to convert them to look different to each other. That's gonna be the first fun thing.
Yeah, that's always the fun thing with the launch
not gonna be
box.
great. But
Yeah. I like every model on that thing. I think the Neurotyrant is really growing on me as well.
Neurotyrant
with
is
its
my favorite model from everything
weird
they've released.
nonsense.
It's like Neurotyrant and then the Terminator Captain is
Mhm.
like the top two for me, and then the Winged Prime is like third, definitely.
The Winged Prime is super sweet. Hopefully, the Winged Prime's data sheet is actually worth taking because he
I hope-
does look
Yeah,
super
it's just
awesome.
not going to be like. Don't get your hopes up.
I
It's
know.
not-
I don't care what he gives. I hope he gives just no buff aura and fucks. Like he goes in a squad and he just fucking owns. That's all he does. He's like Sergeant Plus, and he costs an HQ slot, and that guy just fucking slams.
He's got wings, but he gets attached to regular Tyranid warriors, so he gets slowed down by them the entire
I don't
game.
even care. Sure, whatever. Does Onslaught still exist? Then we're fine.
John's just trying to embarrass me in public because I'm just gonna, like look at these super chats a lot and be very touched by this community. Also, the little Neurotyrants, like little two guys, are adorable, and I
It's
kind
gonna
of
be really sad every time you perils and have to kill one.
I
Imagine
will
barrels with your ranged attacks.
yeah, imagine perilsing with ranged attacks.
Well,
That's
yeah,
true.
because you could overheat it, and then it becomes
that's
whatever
true.
that keyword
You
is.
will every time. You know the Neuro Tyrant's overheated smite is gonna be like strength 80, fucking 12 damage. Just
I hope you can join.
Yeah, it's the only thing in the game with damage spell. It's just like no.
Yeah, it's just like everybody dies. The whole take out a blast template. Fuck that zone.
It has anti everything 2+ and devastating wounds.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope
fuck
so.
you.
Yeah, and anti-opponent 2-up.
They forget the real box has got a special character version that's the Doom of Malantai.
Oh,
I hope
no.
so. I hope so.
Can we talk
Just
about the one?
all of its guns are actually auras instead of targeted.
What is the model you don't like, Jeremy? Because I know you're trying to get
That fucking dreadnought.
It looks so stupid. I love
I
it.
hate
the box knot, but
It was-
redemptorized.
Yo, real talk. I hate every Marine in that box. Like, I don't think any of those Marines are interesting.
The Terminators are great, but
they're
that's just because
fine.
They're
they
Terminators.
kept the regular Terminator aesthetic, but then upscaled them just enough that they look better next to Primaris than the current Terminators. That's
I'm
the
gonna
only
be
thing
honest.
that they needed to change.
Every 3D print I've seen for a Terminator looks better than those. Like, the real issue with this box, and like, part of this is team's bias that I'm just hardcore not allowed to touch Space Marines because we have Jaime on the team. So I'm just like removing myself from caring about them. But like all the models are just like man with flamer, weird dreadnought thing that somehow has less guns than the melee versions. Like it's just like, what are we doing? What are these
Marines,
units?
bro. There's only
It's-
so much.
Yeah,
There's other things like
with Primaris, none of this is surprising.
Blade Guard are awesome. Like
Blade Guard were
the
like the
Starguard.
one cool model that have come out in the Primaris line.
No. The Primaris Tech Marine
Yeah,
is the best
well,
model in the Primaris.
Okay,
that
yeah.
guy's
The Primaris
cool.
Tech Marine is the best. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah,
the
like
best
some of them
model.
are cool. The Terminator Captain's okay, but like in general,
He needs a
like,
helmet.
Of course.
it of course suffers for comparison. The NID's getting like 6 new units that all look dope is not doing them any favors.
But the Marine half will sell, so it doesn't matter.
Sure, but I'm just saying for me, like that half is mad disappointing.
I agree that like it's not as like exciting, but also it's hard because there's like so many good new units in that tier and a half, like you said. the tier
Marines
and a
are
half.
such white bread. Is the
Also, the
problem, right?
Psychophage, even though people are kind of hating on it because it looks like somebody copied the Venom Crawler's homework,
I was
The
gonna
Venom Crawler's
say,
a cool pose.
like,
Like
I
right,
still
it's
love
totally
it.
Venom
Like I still
Crawler.
think that thing looks awesome.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Its data sheet is going to be terrible.
I choose to believe
Because
that
it looks
Vastor
cool.
just like saw a Psychophage. It was like, I want that. I want one of those things.
He actually,
How dare you?
They're gonna go back and-
date that cunt. Don't you besmirch the name.
They're gonna
of
go
Venom
back-
crawlers in front of me.
they're going to go retcon the Venom Crawler
Vastor's
or to
most
just
precious
be
little
that they were
child.
copying Psychophages.
maybe then they have an
perfect.
interesting backstory.
The main thing to remember, the main thing to remember, the Florida players, do not play even splits for your launch boxes. You are not getting 50%. You're not paying 50% because there are 5 Marine players for every one of you. Haggle.
That's true.
Yeah, there are a lot more people looking to part with their Tyranid halves. So get your Tyranid halves, guys.
I mean, or just wait like a month and there'll just be infinity Tyranids on eBay that from people that couldn't keep their shit together and ordered like 15 of the starter box.
Yeah. Also, I mean, they're probably going to do what they did with the Indomitus box just right away, I'd assume, and do a made to order, or just maybe they produced just a bajillion boxes.
I mean,
I
No,
need
they
3
didn't.
halves of the Tyranid set.
They might
I
have.
just need
they
them.
have said that they have made more of this set than any other box before.
Well, that's
What
good.
that means, we'll find out. But my
It's like
expectation,
one.
There were
Yes,
15
God.
lions globally, so it's not saying much.
yeah, but they didn't say that there were that many of those available.
Oh,
Maybe
8
that's why there
bound.
weren't any. They've just been making.
Yeah,
It was
eight
also
bound.
meant to be a limited box. I'm pretty sure that Lion Guard box.
Yeah, the line
Like
is
it
intended
came
to
with
be a limited
special
box.
art and stuff in it, guys. The single box will come out in like a month. Just buy that. Don't pay $200 for the Lion Guard box. I saw people
200.
doing that, and I was like, please don't.
I think we all know at least one person like that.
Yeah, mine is Brandon.
And
I was
Ian,
smart.
the
I
Bark
sold
Gods
all
look
mine, so I didn't
fine.
have that temptation.
Brandon's got like a down payment worth of Necrons in his house.
Oh, that's so many Necrons.
He was like, I want to start Necron. So I used a bunch of like the credit that I would pick up at random tournaments and I kept giving him Necrons. So somewhere like he's going to open a closet one day and just die from Necrons.
They're just going to fall over, and Trazen will be the last model that rolls
If
out.
they sit around long enough,
God,
the rules might wrap
victory.
around and they'll phase out on him.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe Necrons will get sweet rules. Wouldn't that be a
I hope-
bitch?
I hope the Necron army rule is phase out. Like,
Oh.
It's just negative.
They're gonna get a ton of really cool, powerful data sheets, but their faction rule is gonna be phase out. Like they'll burn super hard until you pick up like a third of them, and then they just are like, never mind. All
Can
right.
we talk about something else before we talk about Ennis? Because there is one other thing that has me extremely excited.
Go for it.
Yes.
I got time.
What is that?
Oh. Oh, go away.
One of the other things that GW talked about recently in the last week that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet, and that has Anthony on edge. And that's why I'm bringing this up, because
Ugh, gross.
Let me go get my Maelstrom decks.
yeah, I mean this is my Tempest War deck that has been used once.
Hell yeah.
So I'm hoping that it stays mostly the same, and that way I don't have to. Well, I'm going to buy the launch 2 or 3 launch boxes.
Yeah, they're in the launch
anyways,
box. Like, it's fine. Chill.
but I
I've
love that
heard
they're in the
too.
launch box. But yeah, like who doesn't love the idea of a tournament not choosing all of the cards ahead of time and you just going up, walking to the table and say, all right, we're playing on Hammer and Anvil.
I'm definitely
Enjoy.
doing that on definitely doing that on RTT at least once.
Oh,
just for
I'm
the
going to do that at the very first RTT we have, where it's going to be like, Arvin, pull out your decks, have fun.
Should I do
Um,
that for our TTS event in the Discord? You're
Oh,
just
hell
gonna
yeah.
Draw
Yes,
all of
100%.
your events randomly.
100%.
Sorry, guys.
Oh no, we do it live every round after list
Oh,
submission.
On the
And-
show, so you have to go
Yeah.
watch the show to find out your mission parameters. As I
Well,
draw
actually, so-
deck
100% what we're doing.
cards.
I really like this, and I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent about why I really like this. One of the problems that a lot of people had with 9th edition missions is they started to feel samey because there wasn't much change, there wasn't much iteration, there wasn't much anything since the GT Pack 2020 came out. So for 3 years, we've been playing more or less the same missions. Secondaries have changed, and some of the primary scoring has been tweaked and whatnot, but they've largely looked and felt very similar. This gives you more options. Now, I'm presuming that there's actually more in their deck than in the Tempest deck, but the Tempest deck alone has 6 different primary missions, 5 different deployments, and then I think a dozen mission rules that you can apply.
How do I
How do I
tip
tip negative money for
money for Nathan? I mean, you
Oh,
can tip me
Beth.
positive money, and I accept bribes.
Yeah,
If you
but-
don't want to play a random format for the TTS event, just bribe me money. It's fine.
So-
That's how you'll make me change my mind.
Well, this is for the paying to Canada thing, I think.
Mhm. Oh, it could be.
So
for
it
that.
gives you flexibility. It gives you opportunities to create interesting missions and create interesting scenarios without having to really reach outside, and for players to expect this is what could happen in an event. So, as a good example, we are running one of a very early, or we're assuming it's going to be an early edition of early 10th edition tournament at the end of July, and we have committed to we are going to fix every single round. but we're not going to let you know what they are until after lists up. So that you have to prepare for all possibilities of being on the table. At the same time, I went through my Tempest deck and also realized that it's very hilarious because if they kept all of the cards in there and only tweaked them slightly, there's one that applies 2 mission rules instead of 1.
Hell yeah, I like that one.
Nice.
And one of the mission rules is no deep strike in no man's land outside on turn 1, no pregame. It's abandoned sanctuaries, basically. One of the other ones is reserves only come in on a 3-up on turn 1 and 2. Everyone will remember what that used to be like.
No drop pod armies.
That's just such a shit rule. Like,
oh, your drop pod wants to come in? No.
Either just tell me no, or let me do it. Yeah. This, like, maybe it comes in shit belongs in Crusade.
I'm going to say that most tournaments probably won't use that one.
Same for charges. Charges should be automatic too. Remove the variants.
Okay.
Sure. Why not?
It's either in or it's not.
Sure.
You're going to roll one die. It's either going to have a hit or a miss on it. That's all it is.
Exactly.
Everything's going to be 50%.
Don't give me this maybe I hit roll. Just I hit or I don't. Like, just come on.
Yeah. Anthony really missed good old deep strike mishaps.
Yeah, that shit was stupid too. Like, things can be dumb and stay gone. That's allowed.
And as far as we know, Deep Strike Scatter isn't coming back into the game.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
As far as we know.
As far as we know.
I hope that when you do the insertion one, you actually just scatter 6 inches in your opponent's direction of choice.
I will say that I like the deck as far as like pickup games go and stuff like that. I do also think that I hope every tournament organizer for non-RTTs just does what Jeremy talked about and have a preset setup that they're going to run with.
The only thing I fix 2 out of the 3 every round, but it's a different one that isn't every round.
So for our tournament,
for the pairing, I'll be like, and your extra thing this round is that one.
My co-organizer had originally proposed that, and I was like, not for the first big one that we're running, because this is a golden ticket event. We're giving out 4 tickets. It's going to be like we're expecting 60 people. We might get more. We can take up to 160.
Another event with 4 tickets. Does everybody in Canada not already have one?
By the time we're done, yeah, pretty much.
It's
only Eastern Canada, by the way,
like,
because
why bother?
Central and Western Canada got nothing.
Well, you have to ask, right?
Rude. Yeah.
I
will say that I don't like gambits very much. I think it's kind of weird.
Oh, gambits are weird, but they also suck. So who gives it?
Yeah, gambits are I'm losing horribly, and I'm going to try to lose less horribly, but I'm still going to probably get fucked.
I don't think they'll ever matter in singles. I think they will only matter in teams, and I guarantee at least one round at WTC will swing on them if we use them.
I hope that they're in just for that.
I think that's funny. That's fine.
It's way less funny when you're the team that it happens to, but sure.
Yeah, but the team that happens when.
Yeah.
I definitely will have to hear about for like the next couple of months after release about how somebody lost to that artillery.
You're gonna get it.
Like it's just gonna happen. I'm gonna get like messages about it, and somebody's gonna be like, "It's great, Nathan. I totally lost my game because somebody took it and rolled an 11," and I'll just be like, "Cool."
I feel
sometimes
I feel like the score diff that it creates in singles is probably too much to claw back from. Usually,
it depends how far behind you are.
Well, because you're choosing it on 3, right? Oh, I guess it's at the end of 3 though. Is when you're like,
3.
Let's go.
So you get your 2 and 3 primary scoring, and then you get about 4 and 5 primary.
Oh, I dislike it significantly more now. Actually, I just misunderstood how it works. Yeah, that's stupid. But whatever.
How will Gambit not just get taken out by every respectful tournament straight away?
Because frontline have.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Gambit's taken out.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. With the exception of the Gambit, I really like the secondary system. The idea that you can either fix or draw that they mentioned, where I was just like, okay, that's kind of cool. So you can
definitely drawing every time.
The cards, because if they've built this correctly, there will be a greater reward with a small amount of risk for playing drawing.
Heart of the cards, baby.
Exactly. And if they've done it correctly,
I'm gonna play
like they did at the end of Maelstrom, at the end of 8th, it will actually be quite a fun system from the perspective of you aren't going to draw manifest a psychic power as Tau.
That would be like a slightly too easy secondary, so probably not going to exist in the first place. But
yeah, everything will be great until the faction cards start to attack.
Please no faction cards. Please no faction cards.
I think faction secondaries were like one of the best things they did in there.
It's one of the worst, so I'm glad that we agree on these.
Yeah, that is like otherwise like the on the rails factions that have little other like imagine world leaders trying to play like generic secondaries. The army would just be shit.
It depends what those generic secondaries are, though.
But like the ones we got, right?
Sure.
Yeah, but the ones we got would have been different if faction secondaries didn't exist.
Is
So it's
that
a false
true?
equivalence. Why would you assume it isn't?
Because
mean-
in the beginning of the edition, we just said no faction secondaries, right? When Space Marines had theirs and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And the army that dominated the game was
Harlequin?
Harlequins, because it's just the fast MSU armies when that happens. I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure early, like, if with, like, assuming that's the way that goes, it's just going to be elf.com, but we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong.
We'll see.
That would
I mean,
be my
I-
early prediction in a world where there's no, like, I know your faction's slow, but you can score in these alternative ways. But we'll see.
I don't know. I am holding out hope that it works.
Did Anthony see the mini chainsaw of the new apothecary?
I
have
do
to know.
not. There's a mini chainsword.
On the apothecary. Well, the apothecary is not really an apothecary anymore. He doesn't heal people. He's like a research scientist taking samples.
Yeah, they
He's
still call him
Nathan.
apothecary.
We have Nathan in 40k now.
Yeah, it's true. You have me and 40k wandering around the battlefield taking
We're going to
random
start
limbs and
selling
testing
3D prints
them.
of Nathan's head to put in your Gravis apothecary.
Sure, why not?
The only model that's allowed to be on helmet in 40k.
It would make me so mad though, because everything should wear helmets. Sorry, it's like my one pet
It's just got a
peeve.
see-through visor.
Yeah, just the beard sticking out the bottom of the helmet. That's all it is.
Everyone will know.
Mhm.
Because he's going like this.
Just shaking both his fists at the sky.
Yeah.
Okay, this is actually kind of cool.
There's a weird clicking noise from underneath him.
Yeah, you just hear a beep every 5 seconds from the model.
Yeah.
Oh dang! Oh yeah, there. Oh yeah, like a little chainsaw on the
Yeah.
top.
That's going to
He's
break
got a little
off
sample
easily.
container. I
I
will
don't have this
take.
guy and it's broken already.
I just want the
Yeah.
marine half for this model now.
I mean, I'll just sell you an extra if you want it,
Oh,
or give it to you.
There's going to be
Oh,
so
that's
many.
There's no way that I'm going to need like 3 of them.
Oh,
I mean,
what
I
have you
will accept it.
done?
Oh shit!
What did you say
You should attach
that?
every squad of your army now.
Fuck.
All right.
All right, now, the main
we're gonna
event.
make. Now we're gonna make Innes talk about himself and his win path this weekend. That trophy is awesome, and
It's so
I love
fucking
him.
cool.
It's also mostly in the frame. Look at you go.
It's
Keep
so
going.
heavy.
It's upside down and it's gone.
Oh, there we go.
This thing
Yay!
is genuinely like weightier than my ambitions in life.
Yeah. Doesn't take much.
Thanks, Anthony.
Hey, Ella Woozle, researchers are doctors too. Be quiet.
Apparently, he collects samples of the enemy and buff squads with it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's actually there to collect student loan debt.
Why is the canister so large?
His
He
He
equipment
goes
looks
around
way
looking
too nice.
for Death Guard plague surgeons to a cost for shakedown for money.
Yeah.
His equipment looks way too nice for a postdoc. Actually, sorry guys.
Yeah.
All right. Innes.
Warhammer's really
Win
fucking
is-
easy.
Yeah.
You just kind of put the guns at the things and say, "Do you need me to roll this a bunch?" And then they don't, and you score the points. It's a roughly accurate
I love-
summation of 40k in the Iron Man now. I don't really know how to go about this best because, like, my
Talk
game,
about your
they
2
wanted
most
to-
interesting games.
Okay, so let's talk about the semifinals and the finals because realistically, that's what everybody cares about, right? I did play 3 games on stream. I'll talk about the double Strayas game as well because that was kind of funny. There was this game against the double Strayas in the round of 16, which was super funny because we played this game exactly a month ago in Manchester in round 5 of the tournament for me to determine if I was making top 4, and then we put it in top 16 to determine if I was making top 8, which was really cool. A nice little copy and paste of the last beta. And in the last one, I ripped one of them to bits, and then the other one sat on top of a rune and tagged my drop pod. And then I scored 100 points, and he like tabled me because it didn't matter. Now neither of us have Codex Warfare, you know what's really nice about neither of us having Codex Warfare in that matchup is that I can score other secondaries and he can't. It's quite funny. So I just killed his lance speeders and then he scored a 0 behind me lines. It was quite funny. What also turns out, I believe the commentators were telling the entire time how tanky his traces are. Do you know what the traces are not? Is tanky.
Well, they're
at one-
tanks.
They are tanks, yeah.
So could you care to explain what kind of defensive profile an Astreus has
So
that would make
the
it?
first 6 wounds of an Astreus, well, 3 wounds twice, have a 5 invulnerable save. After that, it's raw dog and a 2-up.
Oh
and it's-
God.
Don't know if you've heard of these things called combat doctrines, but it's a really bad time to be anything in line of sight when you have just a 2-up save.
It's a lot of
toughness
AP4,
8,
AP5.
toughness
and that.
8, 30 wounds, it flies, it has like so many guns, like it just looks at a thing and it goes away. It's fine. It'll comfortably kill like 4 units of Space Marines a turn. You know what it doesn't do is survive the second squad of Desolation Marines.
Yeah,
At one point, the stream cut away midway through my turn 3. Cuts away. The dropper comes down, looking at an Astreus. You can see it on the angle onto the ruin. Stream cuts away, comes back. It's bottom of my 4. Both are dead, and I'm in his deployment zone.
Yep.
It was gone for maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I can only apologize to Dave. This was a miserable matchup. He knew it was a miserable matchup, but he also didn't have any outs and played it as best as he could given the circumstances. I did nothing for 2 turns and then killed his army. It was great. Iron Hands are fun on both ends of the equation. He had just beaten Chris as well, which was nice to get the vengeance for him there.
The saddest part of that commentary in that game is them being like, Iron Hands Astreus, super tanky, and it's down to 3 wounds. And you're like, what? And we're like, oh, that was the Desolators that shot. And it was like, yep, sure was. Anyway, cut away.
I spent the first 2 turns Volconing each Astreus once to strip the Void Shields, doing nothing else. Because it could see both of them from my deployment zone. Yep. And then I killed one, then I killed the other. Because I dropped the drop pod in behind an obscure piece of terrain that the Astreus couldn't get to, so that the other one couldn't shoot me back. And then I just walked at it and shot it again from the pod. I don't know. I'm sorry, Dave, is all I really have to say here.
Are you sorry to him, or are you sorry to his list choices?
A little both. I really enjoyed my... The funniest thing in this game is actually my multi-matters, which rolled a 1, a 1, a 6, a 6, and a 5 on damage output across the 2 units activating. But David only remembered the 6, 6, 5. It's like, the first 2 did roll double 1s, man. Like, this is like 2 above average. It's like, that's bullshit. I'm like, it's dead, though.
Yeah. Dead and gone. Bye.
So, yeah, that was my game 6. My game 7, I ended up getting the bye, which is why it's not super interesting to talk about. Boris made the top 8. He beat Josie Cartwright's Necrons, which is a super cool list, by the way. Congratulations to Josie for making top 16 with a Convergence of Dominion and a Monolith in Novok. Honestly, absolute hero plays from her. But he ended up winning best overall and going home. But apparently hadn't told the organizers that the reason he wasn't playing tomorrow wasn't because he hadn't made top 8, but because he was choosing to leave. So he was still in the draw when top 8 got paired, which meant that I turned into him and got a bye. So for competitive integrity, I played a 12-year-old, where we both received the win because it was unfair of me to get a 3-hour break, which I get. I kind of wish it hadn't been a 12-year-old. It was hard to sit there with my Iron Hands army and be like, I can't make this a game for him because if I walk out, I do just die to the guard.
Oh, it was guard?
Yeah, it's the guard with a Rogaldorn, and I'm like, this is scouring. Like, I can't just sit here, and I can't let him shoot me. So I just very slowly, 90 minutes on the clock, violence.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's enough round time that I don't feel bad about this now. It all dies now. Yeah, that was a difficult game in that sense. But kid was really nice. His mum was around. He's Scottish, so I hope in 6 years his redemption arc, he comes around, absolutely pays me, and can take over the team. That'd be great because Chris isn't going to do it. So,
That's true.
Love you, Chris. So then we moved on to the semifinals, which was probably objectively the most interesting game. I don't know how well this one came across on stream because there was a lot of cutting back and forth to the Deathwing versus Guard game, which had a lot of like interesting wraps and tags. So for context here, I'm playing Brian. Brian is a teammate of me and also like half the rest of the top 8, because man is on like a singles team and a national team, so he gets around.
Yeah.
So Brian is playing Eldar. I'm playing Iron Hands. We played this game twice on GW terrain. 2 weeks ago at his house, where he crushed me into the dirt twice, which did not fill me with confidence going in. But I did have one saving reason that I had gone first in both of those games, and both of our secondaries had been all scuffed. He was trying to play a bad RBD plan. I was trying to play banners and also turn one charging in with infiltrators, which feels like it was probably not the way to approach that matchup.
What are you doing?
Dude, I really don't know. I don't understand how to play this army without Codex Morpher. I'm not going to lie to you. I do just be vibing.
Just vibing as the whole opponent's army just gets erased off the table.
I'm like, look, man, I'm going to pick these secondaries, and if there's stuff alive, I'll figure it out. That's been the usual approach.
The problem with Eldar is that they will be dead, but they will have outscored you in the process.
Yeah, that's exactly the problem.
So what secondaries did Brian take?
So
Just
Brian
out of
played. Brian originally started with Scout the Enemy. Scout the Enemy behind enemy lines and Warp Ritual. And then we got like halfway through the deployment step and like we're putting units down. And I start looking at his deployment line and I'm like, looking at where he can physically stand to scout the enemy that's not like there's like the corner of his ruin he can fit a model, and I'm like, so if he can stand a character there within an inch of the wall, and that's the only thing that can scare the enemy that's not immediately dead.
I stand by that, man. Brian says
You definitely should have played Scout. You definitely would have gone and get points.
Come and get
absolutely would have gone and got Bahara. I could have gotten 5 Vanguard Veterans into him on turn 2 and killed him. It would have been great. So anyway, Brian played banners behind enemy lines, and with Virtual, I played behind enemy lines, Oath of Moment, and a third secondary. Banners. Yeah, banners. Normal. The secondary you usually take when your opponent's not going to run at you.
Yeah.
Brian then proceeded to run at me with a bunch of stuff. So Brian got first turn and jammed, redeployed some striking scorpions towards me, who managed to charge and kill sort of Vanguard Veterans through the Violet Philippine, which I need to run the math on, but I think I should have had 1 or 2 of them alive, pretty likely. But he got like good explosions, and then I failed a bunch of 4-ups against the crushing blows guy and just took the squad off. They then didn't tag; they got shot to death by Volkic Contemptor. And then some Shroud Runners died my backfield with a Warlock to cast Jinx, who proceeded to explode because he used the Fate dice to get Jinx off, and then rolled the other 1 dice on a 6, and then looked at it and was like, "Yeah, I'll be fine," and rolled a 6 on the. So his first 4 dice rolls of the game were 6s because he got first objective move, excluding Fate dice. He got first objective move, first turn, blew his own head up, and then we started playing the rest of it.
Nice.
I was like, I guess, dude.
He deserved it.
At this point, we're just like, I'm like hugging him off screen a little bit. Just like, this is, exactly what you're looking for out of a game of 40k. The Shred Runners then proceed to nuke a Landspeeder Storm with their guns unbuffed. He's just like, I don't really feel like shooting the Vanguard Veterans anymore. So he shot a Landspeeder Storm, killed it. 2 guys disembarked, got out, and then Wireweave Grenade died. Just like, okay, so that's my behind enemy lines fan a little bit worse. Which then made it into, after the war blowing up, a much more competitive game because you got a bit of a high roll. I had a bit of a high roll. Both feeling fairly. I think I felt fairly even coming out of turn 1. Like I was a little behind a lot of the Vanguard Veterans. Most of the Scouts was a lot of my forward pressure, but he'd also blew up his Jinx, which is really good for my stuff. Just living a little bit, which ended up coming a lot throughout the game. That I just had a few units live a little more than they should have, when he would have had a Smite or a Jinx to make them not die. We then get into like this really scrapping back and forth game where Brian's basically just diving my deployments on constantly for behind lines points, and I'm stealing the middle for Oath of Moment and trying to set up so that I have just enough in the middle that it's not worth him full committing, but enough there that if he doesn't full commit, a couple of things might scam him. Which is, a really, really tight line to walk, where you're like, I need one of these 2 speeders to live with like 1 wound to the Night Spinner, Baroth, and any indirect mortals he's got. and then maybe like a fire and fade. And I got 1 on 1 wound, 1 turn, which was the game. Because it got to get me behind him in lines point and like screened out his D-cannon from coming in off the board edge in a better position, and it just gave me that little bit. And then eventually he came out on turn. I like dropped everything in the middle on turn 3, killed off the rest of his like Harlequin stuff with the Deathless Marines. A Solitaire had an unfortunate incident with a Venga bus. I would actually kind of curious like what your reactions to this live were.
I fucking screamed. I was freaking out.
I saw the rolling happen, and I was like, "Yeah, he's hitting on 5s. Oh no."
Yeah.
Now the question is that we were all wondering: was that the flat 3 damage that killed him?
Yeah, it was
okay. Beautiful.
Oh yeah.
It also didn't matter. So what ended up happening is I rolled 13 shots on the first shotguns, put 5 wounds on him, and he failed 1 and took 1 damage. And I was like, "Damn, I really wanted to be 2." Because 2 is then enough that 1 failed save kills him. Didn't get that. Wenger Launcher goes natural 6 shots. Now, Iron Hands in cover can do anything in cover on a terrain piece can do a roll called Hold Steady. I think is the Overwatch one. So they choose to hold steady, which means they Overwatch on 5s. I actually don't know if it's Overwatch on 5s or +1 to hit on Overwatch.
It's Overwatch on 5s.
Cool. So it doesn't interact with the Iron Hand strategy. Because that would have been really funny. I would have loved to do that.
Now, it doesn't say unmodified 5s, but...
Sure.
Yeah.
So, indirect at him. Wenger Launcher, 6 shots. Roll the dice. 5 natural hits and a 4, which gets rerolled with Master Artisans for another natural for another 5-up, which then proceeded to all wound on 3s, rerolling 3s with no rerolls. No, they had reroll ones because the lieutenant was with them.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So 3s rolling 1s, dunked 6 wounds on the Solitaire, who proceeded to fill the first 2 and die immediately.
Wrong.
Amazing.
Brian's just looking at the 5 dice he has to pass 2 4-ups on and just stops. It was, in all honesty, absolutely heartbreaking to watch. Brian just like drops, and it was just the game straight. Like I think if he makes that charge, we either draw or I lose by a couple points. There is probably not a line out of there. It would have relied on like me hitting a charge out of Deep Strike with the drop pod at that point. I would have needed to like hit the 9 into the Harlequins, just like, stuff like that. Like it would have been a really dicey angle after that, or me hitting the 4-up on the alt and on his warp ritual, which I did miss on the next turn. So there were still lines in there. Like it wasn't just the game, but there was definitely like it swung the game. Like it won the game. Like it meant that I was going to win pretty much. I had to do some cleanup. He had like fired the Kurnos pole pistol, put 6 mortal wounds. Oh yeah, he'd already rolled boxcars on his 9-inch charge before he moved the Solitaire in. It's just like disrespectful. He didn't even have to CP reroll it, which when Baharov failed his charge onto the guys in the middle, he got to CP reroll it. It was like just perfect storm. But no, he died on Overwatch. It was fine.
Yep.
It was very funny watching the stream and the commentators hyping up he's blitzing, he's coming in, he's gonna go in, he's gonna blender those, and then you see the dice starting to get rolling, like, oh shit.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you a question that's gonna make Brian sad. How stressed are you in that exact game if you go second against his orc list? And Brian starts the game just in the middle of the board on GW train, like, what's up?
Not so much because it's Grimacing Artifacts.
You don't think he just like windmill fists a hole, like a orc army sized hole in your army, and you don't dig out in time?
You know the thing with Iron Hands is like the C model kill model thing.
No, I get it, but
it works into an orc army as well. Like
it's kind of tough to C model on GW though, right?
It depends.
Some models you will see.
Because I can like pull my home objective like 6 inches back and then be like, hey, I get that you're gonna dive that one. I'm gonna get there later and just like work your way to it. And it sucks. It really sucks, but it's possible.
I just meant that it's like the big stressful going second into that.
Yeah, but I'd have gone first in that matchup because I always get what I want against Brian.
That's true.
So the roundup of that game.
we've talked about Chris never beating you. Brian's just not like the gods above shine bright on you whenever Brian gets close.
So we're now, I believe, 9-3 in tournament play. The scammiest one is when he went first with his double sun sharks and failed to do any damage to me. Then I killed him with Kraken Tyranids. Just like, well, I guess I'm alive.
Brian has it right there. Anthony, you forget yourself. If I was on Orcs, he would have gone first.
See, Brian and I share a hive mind because that's exactly what I just said as well.
Yep.
So yeah, that ended up with like my Vanguard veterans then got to cross into the middle, charged his Farseer, took his home objective, which was also his priority objective, and then gave him a 4 primary on that turn, which actually held him down on primary and secure artifacts because he then he drops 3 for not getting it, and it ends up just being a couple point, which was heartbreaking for Brian, who then went on to play Manny and dropped him so hard. I think Manny conceded on 2, which was quite funny.
Brutal.
Yeah, it turns out 3's to wound, pretty good for Eldar.
Just enough.
Yeah.
Because that's what they were doing anyway.
I got a ton of strength 5 and 6. That's all I really wanted.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Brian had a really good time there. So Brian ended up coming 3rd at the tournament and winning his golden ticket.
Woo!
So congratulations to Brian. So then I moved on to the final against David Gaylord, who is a player I've only played against once before, so much less experience with this one. This was also, besides the child, the first time I've ever played against the new Guard Codex.
Seriously?
What kind of privileged life do you lead?
That's funny. That's
like
the
I've
best.
done like a couple of TTS and practice games against it, but I've not played it in a tournament before.
Every single
Anthony.
tournament I've been to in Arcs, I have played Guard, and it has been pain and misery and suffering. And I love you, John, very, very much, but still, no more Guard.
Anthony's gonna leave in just a second because he just doesn't understand how this works.
So how was your first experience into Guard at tournament play, aside from the 12-year-old?
Fuck you.
So first, what secondaries did you take and what secondaries did David take? And what
So-
mission were you playing?
So we were playing Death and Zeal.
So for people who are listening, Alex Taus just asked, Innes, was this also the first time that you've beaten a Kiwi?
I don't know. Maybe. I've only played David in tournaments before, like one
Oh,
for
I
one
like-
guy. I've never played Alex in a tournament.
Oh yeah, but you played him. I think that was the joke he was making.
Oh, sorry, we played a practice game in his garage where we played Chaos Knights into Gene Circles and I didn't beat him. I'm so sorry for concluding that on my permanent record.
You realize he's coming for you at the WTC, Alex.
You can do whatever he wants. I love Alex. He's a wonderful little lad who gave me a bunch of training for free, so I should probably not shit talk him too much. Plus, his podcast died. So,
Isn't he huge?
Alex, he's built like a twink. Like,
Oh, he's skinny.
yeah,
He's a rake.
exactly.
All right.
All right. How was
I know.
playing not born soldier, nerfed Kasserkin guard, you
So-
fucking nerd?
As I was
There weren't
mentioning
even any
earlier-
Kasserkin in the list.
As I was mentioning earlier, Brian is both mine and David Gaylord's teammate. And I said to him, "You're not going to tell me any of this anyway." He said no, and then proceeded to walk over to David, which was a little painful. I was just like, "Oh, okay,
Betrayal.
so he's decided
Just
which side he's on here."
betrayed.
Okay, I get it. Thanks, Brian.
So you guys
Just
were beating him.
betrayed.
So I want you to know that I don't feel too bad about what I did to him because of that specifically. So David is playing a armored superiority and swift as the wind army, which is basically +2 move on all his horses and vehicles, and then +1 movement on all his infantry, and then all of his vehicles count as more object depending on more models based on how many wounds they have. So like the Sentinels are 3, Chimeras are 5, and his Dorn is 10. So I speak to Nassim very quickly about this because this is Nassim's list, Nassim pilot, and it seems like he's gonna just like pressure your objectives. And I'm like, cool. So I'll take Shock Assault. It's Death Assault. I'll get 7 points if he takes 4 primary off me. I'll recover it. It's fine. And then he proceeds to just like sit in his deployment zone, and I'm like, oh, that's not a very good secondary here. So we end up on kind of the same wavelength of game as what I had with Brian. So I'm sitting here looking at needing to cross the middle, but he's got 2 very melee tool command squads that, with the order for +2 movement and native +1 and +1 to charge, are going to be able to dive in the middle and take it off me if I put too much there, right? So he's going to be able to jump there. He's also encouraged to get in there because he's got boots on the ground. So he's running boots on the ground, flexible command, and raise the banners high. I have shock assault, oath of moment, and bring it down. I go second again, which is an absolute gift from the gods. 100%. If I go first in either of these games, they are much harder. I think I just lose the Brian game, and it's very difficult in the David game. So you got to, as I say every time, you've got to be very lucky to win a tournament. Everybody does, and I was, and I am, and that means I got the prize. So skill issue. Every time, man. I don't understand how that. I need to stop saying it. I've been saying it way too much lately, to the point where I'm like saying it in normal conversations, and people look at me weird. I don't know, man. I can't help it.
Skill issue.
So my secondaries, Oath of Moment is going to be a 15 because I'm going second. It's very hard to stop Space Marine scoring a 15 on Oath of Moment. It's kind of a ridiculous secondary. Don't know if anybody noticed. And then I'm going to get something on Shock Assault, maybe, eventually. And Bring It Down is
sure didn't look like it early. I'll tell you that much.
And Bring It Down is going to comprise of some number of points depending on how aggressively I can play the late game turns. Because if I can see Sentinels, they're going to die. If I can see the Dorn, it's going to die. If I can get to the Chimeras and stuff like that, they're going to die, right? Like it was better than the other options. Now, should Shock Assault have been banners? Yeah, it just should have. But my worry if I play banners is that David does lean into that very aggressive mode, and that becomes a game that's a lot sloppier and a lot less. There's a lot more play in that game, right? Like we're then trading over the middle objectives and we're fighting a whole bunch, which is going to give him a bunch of primary extra. And like, sure, I'm getting banners, but he does have the capacity to dive me. So it's not going to be a fun experience playing banners into this list because it has a ton of obsec, a ton of board control. It's going to be difficult. The silence with a ton of damage. So like
it also
the
gives
game
more ways for the game to go sideways.
Exactly. Well, let's talk about how it went sideways. So it's very, very possible that banners would have just changed the game completely, and it's very hard to walk down the line of how the game would have played if we had done banners instead. So what ends up happening is Dave I deploy very, very safely. I strategically preserve my repulsor, which I think Anthony enjoyed quite a lot based on me reading back from the chat.
Dude, I was freaking the fuck out. I was like, "Where's the repulsor?" And then I was like, "Oh, I guess it must have died to something. I don't know what happened." And then I'm like, later, you're pulling it on the board. I was like, "Ah!"
And then obviously the drop pod take its content. So I put basically everything behind the sort of bottom left plate in Death and Zeal. Now I don't know if you know anything about GW Layout 3 on Death and Zeal. You get like a third of a ruin to hide in. Layout 2, sorry. The day 3 layout, which was layout 2. I hate this. You get like. You don't really get a deployment zone. You get like half of a ruin and behind it. And then there's like a bunch of dead space where if you stand there, you die. So I didn't put anything there. I put everything behind the ruin. And that's fairly fast army. I had infiltrators at the top left that basically fully concentrated. David had put down some sentinels so that I couldn't get permanent control on it or the middle objective without being in line of sight. But I don't really need that. I can walk onto a turn 1. The infiltrators are going to be screening the back corner, so he can't drop in for like boots on the ground there anyway, and he has to place them down in line of sight. The only place he's going to be able to put down his reserve units, so he's got 30 scions and 20 guardsmen in reserve. They're going to be able to walk onto this one little piece of dense where they'll get like 8 of the models on the dense and 2 of them not, which means I can start murdering them with the Contemptor and like the Gladiator Reaper or Desolation Marines with direct line of fire. Like, the guns in the army can kill 10 guardsmen. So he puts them down there, and it's the only place he can come down for boots on the ground that isn't, actively inting. He proceeds to, rack up some inflexible points. He gets like a 3 and then a 5 and then I think like a 2. He ends up with like 14 on the flexible command because I managed to. The Sentinels get separated from the Ontus and like the squads on boots on the ground get separated once command squads start dying. So like inflexible gets handled like a 14 over the course of the game. Boots on the ground ends up being like a 12 for him because you don't sort of turn 1. You got the command squad in the middle twice, and then like Marble got a few times. So it ended up being like a 12. He had an 11-inch charge on my repulsor with the -1 charge -2 charge stratagem, which he failed, which would have given him another point, which would have meant I had to kill another thing to bring it down. That was a Hail Mary for him to do it. I probably could have just moved the image back. I think I wanted it far enough forward to threaten the Sentinels, so I was happy giving him an 11 there. Then we have what happened in the middle of the board, which is the entire game, basically, was just like this one objective that I'm drip feeding, doing the exact same thing as I was doing to Brian, where I'm just like, here is a thing with another thing that's really awkward that you have to slightly commit for. And the entire goal is, over the course of like 3 turns, I will bleed out everything that can get to the middle, and I can, on that turn 3, stage everything in the middle and then make a play. And that's the entire game plan. Is there's 2 command squads and 1 squad of scout sentinel, or like 1 squad of sentinels that will be close enough forward to get to this. If I can deal with the 2 command squads and make sure the sentinels are far enough back that I can't, that if they wanted to shoot me, they'd be dead, then I can make a play on his objective on turn 4. Oh, and that's exactly what happens. He feeds me a command squad, I kill it. He feeds me a command squad, I kill it. He's very careful to not stand on the middle objective to give me shock assault. He like gives me like, but it's all movement, right? It's, you know, the land speeder gets the angle, nothing can shoot it now. It's safe. The scions come down in his backfield objectives. Desolation Marines are just slowly racking up damage. I'm killing like a sentinel here, putting some damage on the Chimera here, some guardsmen there, right? It's just constantly building up that chip damage. And then on turn 4, David is sitting with an objective Chimera, 10 infantry on the outside of an objective in the bottom right, and 10 scions that are going to do the -1 AP and no wound reroll strategy on them. And I look at that objective and I go, I have 12 models looking at this objective. So if I can kill 5 of those guys and all these infantry, and I can get my right to war here, I can dive it. And there's a command squad in the middle that I can use as a slingshot charge. So I fire, like, there's 6 guys in this squad with a Bogren. So I fire 4 Desolation Marines and kill 2 of them. There's 5 guys left. Fire 4 Desolation Marines, kill 3 of them, 2 guys left. Everything in my army charge is there, and at the bottom right. The indirect from the Desolation Marines picks up 5 of the Kazakhstan, 5 of the Scions, apologies, and then I jump the objective. Wrap the Chimera, and that's game over. David has some plays here. He can try. He just has to go for trying to tag down as much as I can, because I can get to his home objective now with a bunch of stuff, which will be another shock assault because it's Death and Zeal. He moves off it to try and make like the charges more awkward. So if I try to kill the Chimera, I have to charge past it. Things like that. Just it becomes a bit more difficult. But I've taken a banner down, so he's going to get 8 on banners, which is matched by my like 4 on shock assault and the 7-point primary advantage I'll have, and then Oath and Inflexible are matching. So then it's bring it down versus boots with a little bit of an advantage there if I can get a bit more.
Yeah, so when you pull the trigger and kill the sentinels.
Yeah, well, I have a Contemptor that's untouched, 5 Desolation Marines, 10 Devastators that all walk into the open and can see 5 Sentinels, 2 Chimeras, and they're all dead. So I get we don't roll it. I max bring it down that turn as well. So I end up winning. We didn't take the shock assault points because I just don't need to make the play, and I win by 3 points with the bring it downs.
Yeah, just by killing the stuff that's in the
just by killing the stuff that is there and dead.
With rerolls.
That was the game. There was also like some really cool things in the middle board that mattered but didn't matter. Where like I tried to pull off a double wrap on like a Sentinel and a Tempest of Sand squad that would have made him burn a bunch of CP. But it ended up working out anyway because he committed the Dorn and burned a bunch of CP to Desperate Breakout instead. Because I was expecting him to like acceptable losses, Desperate Breakout the Sentinel acceptable losses, and kill one of the squads anyway. And instead, he Desperate Breakouted the Sentinels, fell back with the Scions. Now, the only issue there was he got the extra boots point for that. So there was a couple of things in there. But the Vanguard squad that was going to die died anyway. The other squad didn't take damage and sat behind a wall. It got charged by a command squad and like took a damage, I think, to the Field of Pain, which was what I was doing to bait him to coming towards me. Right. That then meant the Rogel Dorn, because the angle it had to be on to be within 24 for its meltas, was in line of sight of Desolation Marines. Desolation Marines picked it up. That was the entire play there. Like, it would have been nice to get the double wrap. I know, right? Desolation Marines picked it up is the game plan. The first 4 shots, I got. It
doesn't seem simple or easy, but it does it.
The first four shots I put into it, I had the Contemptor and two squads of Desolation Marines with 7 missiles lined up on it. The first 4 Desolation Marines shot, got 4 hits, 3 wounds on 5s with a reroll 1s and a reroll 1 from the target protocols from the Tech Marine. He failed all 3 saves. It took 14 damage because he failed 2 CP because he didn't have the +1, and then it got removed for the rest. So yeah, that was the sort of game. David played it phenomenally. He played so far back, didn't give any opportunities, but all I needed was that 8 on shock assault because I had the primary difference, and then Oath versus Boots made up the rest. David played fantastically. He told me from turn 1 he thought the game was over and he'd won, which was quite fun. As I'm sitting there like, definitely not, but sure.
So did Vic, as you can see in the Discord.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, all told, it was a phenomenal game. David was an absolute gentleman to play against. We had Justin Curtis like table bossing us basically.
Yeah.
So we had a bunch of like tricky little consolidate plays, and it was just a case of like step back, get the judge to check everything. We ended up having like 20 minutes to play through our turn, like my turn, both of our turn 5s. David played his, and we called the game because it was over. But everything was super amicable. David was absolute pleasure to play against, as was Brian. They were both like super chill games, full play by intent. David congratulated me on joining him in the 3 Super Major Wins Club, which I appreciated. That was a nice. So yeah, nothing but good things to say about both of them, and the fact that there were no English people in the top 3 of an English tournament is absolutely my favorite stat.
What should you have taken instead of Shock?
I don't know. I actually think I should have taken banners in Shock, and not bring it down.
Because then you
then I just don't have to
rely
go
on him
vehicles.
coming out to you or getting those angles.
You can play the passive game.
And
And
Shock,
you
and I
force
can
him
still
to
dive in
come
for
to
2
you.
shock. I can still dive in for 2 shocks.
Shock just seems really fucking sketchy, bro.
Shock
You're
is
always
really sketchy.
you're never not killing vehicles in that matchup, right?
Sure. I don't know. Banners makes it a very different game. The problem was that it's really hard for me to get anything onto the top left objective because
You
it's
just
such
start
a.
the infills up there.
I could if he hadn't got third jump step sentinels there,
Oh,
and
gotcha.
then the distance I have to cross to get there is then like
yeah,
the
it's
Vanguard
hard.
has to start
It's-
really close to the wall,
it's
which then
awkward.
means the Scout Sentinels going first can charge my Vanguard veterans,
Yeah,
which is like a thing I don't want. And then it's like roll a 4 on the advance to get enough stuff there that he can't just like dive it with the Dorn or something, tear down my primary. Like it gets really sketchy really
I
quickly
mean-
if he can do that for a couple turns.
if he dives it with the Dorn, you just fucking...
Well, no, because the Dorn diving 20 inches across Death and Zeal sees my home ruin.
Oh,
So it's shoot me and stare down my primary and
Yeah.
take an objective off me. Like that's not a play I want to give him.
yeah. I don't
Um,
know that it's a play that he'll ever like, knowing the opposing pilot. I don't. The Ignite boys tend to not play that
I'd
aggressively.
do that. Dorn
Yeah.
on your home objective to give you a 4 primary.
Yeah.
Shoot your home ruin. 10
You-
10 Vanguard veterans off your home ruin.
You would do that.
100%.
I would do that. Sean would do that, and that's like the it. I can't think of anyone else that plays that aggressively. No.
I once one of the practice games I played Brian, I didn't raise any banners turn 1 because I charged him with every infantry unit in my army. That wasn't the
Christ.
character.
Maybe you shouldn't take banners.
Brian takes
Uh,
issue with you. Apparently, Dave doesn't play aggressively.
No, Dave is a very aggressive player.
Is he on guard though?
I don't know on guard.
He
That
is
was
bringing
different.
like a more aggressive
Yeah,
guard
when I
list,
played
right?
Dave on Nids, Dave was like full pressure.
Oh
on me.
yeah, Dave's a jammer,
Yeah.
just not on that army into your army is the point that I was trying to
Yeah.
make.
Sure.
On that army, he definitely is because the Armored Superiority Swift as the wind build is designed to put pressure on the opponent.
Yeah, that's the
by-
thing you might think consider.
This
though,
is-
if
that's
you've
like
been in a
the
chat with
aggressive
Liam
one.
VSL, Brian, and Vic for so long that he's allergic to jamming. So,
Yeah. Yeah, Brian gives him the bounce energy, and then Vic and Liam give him the elf power, and he's just like, maybe he's calmed down, you know?
He
No.
forms the Voltron of aggression, but tempered by elfish
Yeah.
nonsense.
Yeah, I joke about that, but actually Liam's a fucking swinger too, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, the
Yeah.
Ignite Boys are actually. Oh, it's just Vic. It's not.
It's just Vic. It's just Vic's
It's got
fault.
Chris Radford, Brian, Vic, and Yoko.
I have not watched Yoko play enough to know how he
Yoko's
plays.
very safe and slow.
Oh, okay.
Like he's tempered.
Yeah.
It's just it's
Now
4
he's
to
playing
2.
his
So
game going 56 minutes overtime.
no, 4 hours and 1 minute that game lasted, and they started early.
Woo!
They started early.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Diffie was at their table waiting for them to say the score so he could press pair like 2 minutes past 4 o'clock
Jesus.
when the round was meant to start.
Hmm.
Oh, boys.
I know that was a Space Wolves versus Deathwatch game. It was just super methodical. And that was Josh Roberts playing it. Josh ended up having that one. What else is to say about the event? Overall, it was a really good time. Like the actual tournament was great, and sense of like, I don't want to put this in a way that sounds dismissive, but I'm going to put it in a way that sounds dismissive instead because it's me. The event was great. The space was fantastic. Like it was really awesome having the like gaps between the tables were great. The judging team was fantastic. Once we got like printed mission packs that were super clear. People still played the wrong missions some rounds somehow, which I think is really funny. The
That's
judges came around
impressive.
and reset all the tables, like so
Yeah.
they were all proper.
They give you boards. They make it so easy.
Yeah, it was really easy to like grab down, flag a judge. Mike Pratt was constantly at the front, like very easy to access. The terrain was not my preferred terrain format. I've played a bunch of games on GW format now in the States and here, and in practice, I don't particularly like it. I find the Perspex plates really difficult to engage with meaningfully in a game of 40k. I don't like the angles that they create. I don't like the... It feels uninteractive, like that you're not actually playing with the terrain, because the terrain doesn't really matter at that point. It's just blocks of you can't see. I generally prefer the more considered angles and things like WC terrain or UKC terrain. Although UKC terrain, like both of them have their own issues. I think the Perspex plates are really hard to see and can create a lot of awkward interactions where you're like, no, but if you actually check the angle properly of where you can, I don't like it. They also feel very closed off and very safe, but impossible to stage on, which really promotes uninteractive play, and I don't like that. The middle ruins are too difficult to get to. Layout 3 is just bad. It's just not good terrain, I don't think.
I was looking at it too on one of the missions, and somebody in my local was like, "Yeah, what if I played this mission on this?" And I like looked at layout 3, and I was like, "There are just two massive lines from through the middle to your opponent's deployment
my
zone.
homework challenge
where
to
you can
anybody
just
would be to
blast it.
Would be to look at layout 3 and set up the abandoned sanctuaries terrain layout, and you can there's like a ruin in the bottom left and a dense piece in the bottom right, and if you put a shooting unit on each of them, they can both see the entire middle objective. They can each respectively see the entirety of the side objective, and they can both see behind the opposite ruin to your opponent's deployment zone. Which meant that my turn 1, like my opponent staged up like a tiny amount, and I shot like a Volkite Contemptor at Shining Spears that were staging, and like he couldn't stand on primary. I'm like, okay, cool. I have second turn and Oath. You'll not have models left.
I am quite glad that the only way I'll ever enter, like the only GW tournament I'm doing since Layout 3 has been introduced, will be the team tournament where I'm taking Layout 2 as a defender as world leaders every time. So I'll just never interact with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A friend of mine
I did
sent
not think it was a
me-
good layout. It was fine on Tide of Conviction, except for the fact...
Yeah.
Actually, no, that was the other problem. The Layout 3 Dawn of War deployment zone includes none of the actual wall of the ruin plate that's in your deployment zone. Not a single piece of it is in your deployment zone. And then the bottom left ruin, you get almost all of it. And that's it. That's all you get terrain-wise. So me and my opponent started our entire armies behind the Perspex sheet, except for like, I put like my infiltrators forward and one storm on that. And then nothing, everything else was just
I have a picture of a
on the back
TTS
boards
layout.
of the board.
Here for the benefit of everyone.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, so see this ruin that's on the middle? If you unlock that and drag it to the... No, sorry, the middle of the bottom objective. If you unlock that ruin...
I can't unlock it. I probably could, actually. Oh, no, I'm not going to try. I'll break everything.
Okay. If you drag that ruin to the front of that plate, that's where they were.
Here? Yeah, that's right.
And then see both these ones on the right and the left? Do the same.
All the way to the front here?
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Talk about just like a killing zone from deployment zone to deployment zone.
If you were like at the bottom right here where that like industrial piece is, you could see the full of the right objective. And these two ones at the bottom left and the top right had windows on them.
Man, how playable is this if you just take the middle ones and spin them? Like if you take one and face it towards one,
yeah, it'd be great.
Take the other one and spin it the other way.
Yeah, so exactly like that. Yeah, Jeremy's an absolute
So it's
star.
already bad with those at the back, though, too. Like, it's not great.
It's not great. It was playable though. Me and Brian played some practice with this one, and you could at least hide. Not with this one.
Oh man, yeah. Ooh, brutal. Oh no. Oh no. That's there's no cover. You're just
Oh man.
you're in the wind.
There we go.
Turn one
Okay,
against
and that
the
middle
shooting
piece,
army.
that middle piece doesn't have any walls on it. It's two like imagine like the industrial sector like fences.
Yep.
They're like an inch high, and they're
And it
not
doesn't-
like dense. They're just light and difficult.
And it doesn't have obscuring, or does it have?
Doesn't have obscuring, no.
Does not have obscuring.
Okay, so if you're in this bottom left ruin, you can see behind the plate at the top, the middle right. If you're at the bottom right industrial terrain piece, you can see behind the plate at the top left.
So let's just get rid of that because really it doesn't do
pretty
anything.
much. And that was the board I put against Shinari on.
Oh,
Yeah. Man, those are some amazing little shooting lines that you can draw just on turn one and just annihilate your poor opponent.
Yeah. And Hardar makes a very good point as well. Only this wall is fully enclosed.
Oh,
The side
not
walls are true line of sight. So wherever
Oh,
they
no,
terminate,
I think everybody at the tournament played those as full line of sight blocking as well. That I was
Okay.
aware of.
because at the GW event train that I played on, it was wherever it ended, that's where it ended.
Okay, no, so we were all playing them as like the same height as the rest of the wall because we were all playing like insane shooting armies that if anything was in line of sight, it died. So we were all like, so these are blocking, right?
Even so, this is
Yeah, this board was an absolute disaster, and this is the same layout we
Real
put Tidy
sketchy.
Conviction on. So if you swap this deployment over to Tidy, this objective layout over to Tidy Conviction, you can see the other problem with this layout, which is that everything is fully hidden.
oh no.
So you get the exact opposite problem. This is the board I played 140 crew on.
Yeah, there's just
You
no crew.
max no prisoners turn 1.
Yeah, I killed 140 wounds of crew turn 1.
You can't go
And a
anywhere
red
on this.
No, you can't deploy anywhere, but you sure can't hold every objective from behind a ruin.
I mean, those middle ones are fucking scuffed.
Yeah, but it's enough that like Baharoth there is a pain in the ass to deal with.
Sure.
Baharoth anywhere is a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know. I wouldn't call that the opposite problem.
And then the third game we played on this one was Recover the Relics, which is a game.
Sweet Jesus Christ. Fuck.
For everyone else's benefit.
Nice.
Why?
That was game one.
I guess you can hold those from the corners with like an.
At least it's game
No.
one.
Yeah,
That's
still
not an
that's real
excuse.
bad.
Remember, you need to control an objective here to get your CP.
I'm sure
Yes.
Ennis's opponent rolled a 4 up to get CP every turn that he played.
You only get that in conversion. You don't get that in Recover the Relics.
You don't get that in this one.
Oh, fuck, you're right.
Yeah, it's only the one where if you don't control your home objective and the one where your warlord is dead.
No,
that
so
they
I played
added the
against.
4 up.
I played against. Oh, sorry. In this one, the ruins were rotated. So the two middle ruins were rotated. So the one
Which
faced
way?
left and one faced right.
Oh, okay.
So you had
so it was
a
kind
ruin
of
to
okay.
work with, kind of.
You had a ruin to stage into, so it was
It's
kind
still
of
not
okay.
amazing.
It still wasn't ideal. But yeah, this is the match I keep playing against a Space Wolves guy who was at his first tournament. He ended up going 4-2, by the way. So like absolute champion. Yeah, so like
Thank you.
that and push to the
Yeah.
side.
Thanks for the free OGW, soldier.
So that guy jammed his full army up because he was like, surely it can't do that much damage.
Oh no.
Man, that phrase was something that I also got from somebody during like Dark Technomancer's Drukhari ones where they charged something and the guy was like, surely you can't kill all of my Thunderwolf cavalry. And then I killed most of it in
Yeah, Brian
Overwatch.
played guard round 1 on this map and was
Oh,
like
boy.
stressed out his mind.
Yikes. That's-
Like I saw Brian running between like his board on the other side, which is never a good sign.
That is generally bad, yeah.
That was I think we're good with it. So yeah, this was the other one. So this layout is just bad. Like I just don't think this is a good layout. There desperately needs to be an obscuring piece in the center. And more training your deployment zone in the Dawn of War layouts. Like it just needs to be the back of the ruin for Dawn of War layouts.
I'm just so confused because like layout 1 wasn't amazing or perfect, right? But it was better than this.
I
think.
don't think I played on it very much.
Yeah, layout 1 was definitely better than this.
I just don't know what the
It's better than this. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
good, but it's better.
It is better. Like
One thing
layout
to
2.
note, that objective there that's in your deployment zone can't be held from off the plate, by the way.
Yeah.
So if you dive it, you can see the objective.
Yeah.
So like Shroud Runners turn 1, if you're trying to like hold your objective, can just see
come
you.
out here and get
Yeah,
that.
they're like,
angle.
how dare you?
Yeah, how dare you exist? And then if you try to like exist after if they're done shooting, they'll just wire grenade you as well. So yeah, I don't think this is a good. The other issue, Hader mentioned it earlier. There was no time management. I get that they want every game to finish and they don't want to like use chess clocks, but games running 4 hours is just not good enough at a competitive event. I don't think. It was nice that every round everybody got to play to finish, or like if you were like, we're going to talk about turn 5 because the judge has called hard dice down and the next round is starting, there was a judge there to walk through it with you. And like you're going to roll just the things that matter. But I just think there needed to be slightly more stringency with it. I don't know. It felt like some games got to run for an extra hour and some games were like, nope, we're moving on to the next round. And it was basically whether you played during lunch or not. And I don't think that's a fair determiner for whether you should get 4 hours for a game or 3 hours for a game. It's whether it was the game one of the day or not. So there just needed to be a little more a little more with that. Like if you're gonna let one of them run on, let it run on exactly as long as you would let every other game run on, which would be like 20 minutes, not
Mhm.
an hour. It only came up once. I get it, but it shouldn't be coming up at all. I like the top cut system. It was fine. I wish it was a little more clear. Like I wish we would just been like given like this is the top 16 bracket. This is the order you're playing games in, like a 1 to 16 seeded or something like that. I think that would have been better than what it ended up being, which was Swiss. But Dave Gaylord always comes second, except he didn't on BCP, so he won't get less ITC points for it, which I think is also
It's
odd.
been updated.
Has that been updated? Cool.
He now is second in
Okay, that's
in BCP, and Brian is third.
cool. Yeah, that's kind of like the main.
Overall, it sounds like it was a good event.
It was a good event. The convention, I have no idea. I really couldn't say. I really wanted to go do all the 10th edition stuff, but I just couldn't. There was no time because everything was going to take super long. All the swagger stuff was really cool. I would probably do it again, but I wouldn't. So the line I ended up on after it was, if they ran one of these a year, I'd do it every year. If they ran more than one, I'd do the biggest one.
Yep.
That's kind of where I landed on it because I don't enjoy the train format. I think it's a little painful. I don't love OGW as a tiebreaker.
I really hate going to tournaments with OGW. I will specifically not go to them if they run it.
Yeah, I would rather like I get that they did most battle points, which hater managed to which hater win. Like there are things that are like I prefer WinPath generally. Obviously I would shill for 20-0 system every day of the week, but for what it was fine.
Okay.
Massive thank you to Joey for running the event. Obviously, it was super cool to see one of the format over here. It's not something we've had a lot of experience with. It's very different from the things that we usually ran. It was super cool to see like the TO for the UKC events played a single Chaos Warhammer Titan and went 2-7 with it. So props to him. It was amazing just having an event that literally, I think, if you would ask me to name the top 20 players in the UK, I think all of them were there, which was just awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, no, that's all I got. The trophy is really cool. There should have been a third place trophy for Brian. I'm very disappointed he didn't get one.
He got a ticket out of it.
Yeah, I know, but it was my ticket, so it's like. Brian has a physical Goblin ticket. I don't have one. That's the worst part. I don't even get like a keepsake for it.
You should have just said that's mine.
I should have. I might have felt a little mean spirited after the game we played, but all the stream people were fantastic. Being on the stream was a great experience. I wish they would have let me use the stat check objective workers or put my England meta soft sign on the board, but I understand that wasn't an option.
I love it.
For all of the criticism that I have of the commentary team, I will say that it did seem like the stream team themselves were very well coordinated.
Stream team themselves were fantastic
because they were talking to the table bosses, they were getting updates. When they were asking the right questions, it was actually quite informative. The challenge is, of course, you're appealing to the whole community, not just people who want to see a competitive game. So there's a lot of explaining how things work that is very useful for that audience.
Yeah, it's not aimed at our demographic, right? All at the end of the day,
no, it's not.
What I think they should maybe consider doing is allowing other people to restream just one of the games. I also don't think they should do 2 stream tables, personally. I think it's a lot of jumping around that confuses the average viewer, but I assume they'll know that better than me. Because not getting a continual game state can be a little difficult for people. But
also, we kept losing like twice in your game. Your drop pod came down, and you were like about to start shooting, and then they switched, and it was like like that's the what are we doing?
They definitely chose multiple inopportune moments throughout the entire weekend to cut to other tables, and it was just like.
No.
But again, this is like room for improvement. I'm glad that they're doing a stream.
A bad stream is better than no stream at the end of the day,
exactly.
right?
And it wasn't even a bad stream, so
yeah, exactly. Warner and Kicker had great energy. I really enjoyed what I've watched 1.5 of the games back so far. Like Kicker is phenomenal. I'm sorry, not Kicker. Paul Murphy. What are you doing?
Sure. Just laughing.
No, Anthony. He's making weird faces. Paul and Warner had a really good vibe. I understand it's a corporate stream at the end of the day, so it's got to be like interacting with the chat and be like, hey, what's your first army? Where are you from? All that kind of stuff.
They did a really good job of that.
But they did a really good job of it. They had having Warner on was great.
Love Warner.
Yeah, no, that's all I really got. should we do questions before everybody falls apart?
Might as well just do plugs real quick. Although we're
Sure,
like
go for it.
super late on it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's fine.
I guess if you're still
It's a
here
bumper
almost
episode because of
2
reasons,
hours, almost 2 hours into this episode, you must be enjoying what you're seeing. So thank you for watching Stat Check so far.
Does it
We
sound
couldn't do
still
this
when I do it?
You just want to do it? You could just
No,
do it.
does it?
There we go. Excellent. Thanks everybody for watching this episode of Stat Check so far. We're gonna take a short break in just a second, and then we'll come back and we'll take show questions where everybody from Patreon will get their questions answered. If you want to support us, you can go to www.patreon.com/statcheck, where for $5 a month you can join our Discord and get access to all of our bonus content. A lot of which will be coming pretty soon. There are a lot of plans for more bonus content in the near future, and you'll only get access to that as it is released if you join our Patreon, but you will get access to it eventually for free regardless on our YouTube channel. Otherwise, if you can't afford that, and that's fine, we would appreciate a like, a comment, and a subscription, or even better, tell a friend about our show and see if they will come watch it. That is my call to action, and you can do that at youtube.com/c/statcheck, where you can subscribe, like, comment, do all the obligatory stuff for the algorithm. And then from this week, Innes was on Contact Loss, which is an amazing podcast where you should go watch him talk about coaching, I believe, right? And then Anthony was on an Art of War podcast. I don't know which one, though. Which one, Anthony?
That's the main one, just like the standard Art of War podcast, talking about my growth as a competitive player and playing world leaders in the second half.
Then you should also check out the other shows on the network. I'm going to call us a network, although I don't know, where you can go watch X and One with Cliff and Tim, who put out some of the best content, I think, in competitive 40K at the moment, where you can learn to grow as a player.
That's on Thursday this week. We didn't have an episode last week.
Yes, so that's every other Thursday typically, minus dad shenanigans.
Dad shit.
And then you can watch Typhus do Enter the Matrix. He's got some cool plans in development, so you guys should get ready to watch some really amazing teams-related content coming soon.
Enter the Matrix is the single best high-level 40K piece of content that is created right now.
And then with that, we're going to take a short break. And then we will come back and do questions from the Patreon, Discord, and from YouTube.
All right, we're breaking.
We're breaking. I don't know how long we want to break. I said 10 minutes, but it doesn't have to be that long.
It'll probably be like 5.
You can play music on this. It's quite fun.
Also, I was told that somebody sent me the text of the Necron stratagem. I don't know that you can intercept Barbican's key units.
Well, I've definitely seen people do it. About
The way that it's
times.
worded, you can't.
Yep, the way that it's worded, you cannot, because they don't come in during the reinforcement step. They come in
Which is
just right after moving.
which is wild because
So you
every
technically
other
cannot.
kind of redeploy like that is a reinforcement phase.
That feels like something that you would ask Jay at WTC, and you would get hit with that large chainsword for asking.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it's
Probably
also
deserve
not in the WTC FAQ, so somebody should probably just ask the WTC to make
No
sure.
one should make them update that FAQ right now. If you ask them a question, you're an asshole.
Or running
I
an
don't
event that uses WCFAQ that could use a clarification, but also
well, in
draws
that case,
points
then
and
rule
just
it
answer the
yourself.
question.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
make it clear
Yeah.
this is the
Fucking-
addendum that we are using after consulting with
Yeah.
someone
Don't
affiliated
make
with
them
WTC.
update that right now.
Yeah,
Please,
exactly.
God, fuck. Don't
have
ask
so many
the WTC
verifications.
nonsense ninth questions that right before their basically tax season as an accountant comes up for them.
Sure.
Yeah. No, for because for Canada teams, a few of those came up, and I was just like, I could run these by Jay and Lim, but realistically, this is how it's going to be worked.
Just
Oh boy.
fucking-
Or there's a redeploy and reposition FAQ.
Oh God, fuck. I hate when this happens.
But it says during the reinforcement step specifically. So I guess if that is part of the reposition and redeploy FAQ,
It is
then sure.
not.
Then if it is not, then it doesn't matter.
I'm just assuming he can, and if you want to play it otherwise.
I'm not going to play it otherwise unless somebody's... I was just going to screen it out.
Yeah.
Why
Keep
don't we
them
just
18
all
inches,
get
which is
along,
doable.
guys? Fucking Warhammer.
No.
Imagine having
obviously,
contentious
War,
rolling.
I
in
learned.
a game called Warhammer, we should all just get along.
Yeah.
I
It
learned
says-
yesterday that you can use fate dice after a reroll. Like,
Hey,
Don't gaslight our listeners.
It's real.
Don't.
Outside of the WTC FAQ, you can roll a dice, fail, and then on the reroll be like, fate dice, go. It doesn't say you can't in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't even vaguely say that. Go look.
But where does it say
Oh.
you can?
And he can't come in
Because
turn
don't
one,
have
so I can
any
just
dice
turn
roll.
one Barbicanski people.
But it's not a dice roll. You've already rolled the dice. This is a reroll, which is different.
Oh,
Is
by
it?
the
'Cause
way,
then she gets
if
real
you are playing the
weird.
WTC FAQ, he can do it turn one.
Oh, he can. He can bring it in from
Yeah.
strategic reserves turn one.
Yeah,
even though he
etheric
typically
interception
wouldn't be
is
able
one
to.
of the only exceptions that the WC has made for turn one strat reserve units.
If you play rerolls as being
Uh.
separate from rolls, the game gets real fucking weird. By the way, a whole bunch of shit just like explodes and doesn't work.
Good. That's fine. I like that idea.
Yeah, I don't think you should do
The
that.
game's doing that in a month anyway. Fuck off.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
but like, I'm just telling you what I was told. I know that's how
Those guard guys are pretty good, right? I don't know.
The what?
Those guard guys are pretty good, right?
Guard is strong, yeah.
I hadn't noticed. I'd be
I
getting on great.
It has somehow managed to live the charmed
Especially
life of never
fucking
needing
duck
to
and
play against
weaving.
guard players.
I
Although
can't
David's
go.
list is also so different than like a standard guard list that you see, like most people see in the wild. Like no Kasserkin, no Key, no Finial. It's very different. Melee equipped command squads are so weird.
It doesn't really add like a crazy amount of melee to them anyway. It's just
I
like
went
when I
7
do,
months
like,
without playing against the guard army. I played them in
You're-
game 141, which was round 1 of Unconquerable, and then I played them in game 247, which was game 7 at Warhammer Fest. And then my first proper game against them was game 249, which was round 9 at Warhammer Fest. So I went 108 tournament games between my last game against Guard, which is the old Codex, and the new Guard Codex.
have I played them in tournament? Oh, fucking John! God damn it, John!
We're gonna make sure that John shows up to Capital Clash just to play against Nathan.
I don't even know what I'm bringing to Capital Clash, to be honest, if I am able to go.
That's not fair. It's actually a treat. You're supposed to make Nathan suffer when he moves.
Don't worry, he'll play like Hamza or something.
That guy had me real distracted in those Harlequin. I was like, what is going on?
I don't know.
Hit
We still have to
Harlequin.
hit. We have to hit at least half of the flight cost in order for me to go to Capital Clash.
Get there.
We'll get
Cool.
there.
Should we dive back into the questions?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, we'll pause for 5 seconds and then we'll come back in.
One more second before we go. Kruor, the WTC FAQ specifically says that etheric interception can come in on turn one, but it also does not fix the interaction. You are correct.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify in case someone
Excellent.
thought that meant that you couldn't come in turn one. Anyways,
Amazing. All right. Welcome back, everybody. You probably just heard an amazing ad for some kind of service and or thing. Probably Goonhammer. I don't
Woo!
know.
Goonhammer.
So now we're going to start taking questions. We'll start from the Patreon Discord, and then we'll move into YouTube once we are through all of those, or when we get all tired and decide to stop. First question is just a quote from somebody, and I cannot tell who it is from. Okay, wow, that's a long question. The discussion about commentary in the Warhammer Fest channel has me thinking, how do you think the community can improve the quality of stream coverage at events? Some challenges I see include Warhammer is an international game with different regional standards for events, little to no money in a good stream, which is expensive to set up, requires extremely knowledgeable and charismatic hosts that aren't also playing. What are some of the ways to overcome these challenges?
the reality is money needs to be invested. You need to make you need to do one of two things. You need to convince GW that there's a business case to be made for just providing entertainment commentary that and streaming that is similar to what we get from people like Peter the Falcon Colissimo, Rob the Honest Wargamer, Adam Camilleri, those kind of content creators that really know the game or know what kind of questions to ask to drive commentator. Also, John, thank you once again. We
Thanks,
are going to
John.
get Nathan up here just for that.
One's gonna get moving up there.
Yeah, seriously.
John, do you just want to buy my ticket? Do you just want to do that for me,
Extra
bud?
But I think you can pick his army.
Sorry,
Yeah.
continue answering the question. Yeah, if you do that, you can pick the army, I guess. Why not?
So GW making the case to GW to invest in this and do more of a commentary stream on like high level quality commentary, not just for everyone. The problem is that the audience for that is fairly small.
Yeah.
Like you look at War Games Live, they produce. All right, so anyone who I'm going to cut this off just because it's hilarious. So John has just said to send him the link. We will talk to you after the show,
We'll talk to you
John.
later, John.
Anyway, so the problem is it's very small. War Games Live puts on an amazing high level, high quality production stream for tournaments. He does it entirely out of his own pocket for the most part. Some tournaments are able to support him, but the reality is most tournaments don't have the funds or can't come up with the funds to pay for a stream. It's usually done out of donations, out of Patreon support, and the like. Some tournaments have been able to support and pay for streams, but to get that kind of high quality, like a really good example that's often brought up in the Stature community was Capital City Bloodbath last year was streamed by essentially the FLG stream team back when, or FLGN stream team back when they were doing events, because it was Tech Priest Dicky and Val Heffelfinger working behind the scenes. You had Rob the Honest Wargamer fly in, and we had Peter the Falcon Colissimo also come in, and the commentary was just top notch. That kind of, for lack of a better, casting duo is very rare to come by, and it's very difficult to fund and to keep going and to essentially shuttle from event to event around the world, or even around North America or around the UK or EU, wherever you end up focusing, wherever you end up focusing this. But anyways, back to like War Games Live, really high quality stream, gets what, 1,000, maybe a couple thousand viewers on a big event. I can't remember his actual numbers, but I seem to remember it being somewhere along those lines. Like it is a good amount for a niche hobby, but at the end of the day, it pays enough to keep him as a solo operative going. If that turns into a team of people who actually want to make their career out of it, it becomes a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
And so the challenge, it always comes down to money. So you can either convince GW that there's a business case to be made for streaming other events aside from their own, or you find someone who has relatively deep pockets and willing to take risk and have them throw money at creating a stream team, hiring commentators, hiring a technical crew, and essentially running at a loss for a considerable amount of time. Because let's be honest, while we are in a fairly niche and fairly expensive hobby, if you look at things like sponsorships, it's very difficult to get that kind of money to keep it going.
Yeah. And like it's also hard because if you want to do more than just like an English language stream, it can get more complicated, because you do want to do that. You want to include non-English language streams if you can, because there are large communities where English is not their first language. The Spanish stream, I think, is the one stream team is like the big example, because at one point I think there was a Spanish group streaming. Man, I can't remember what it was, but they had more than the English language primary stream.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Elvio, I think.
That was
all.
Elvio,
We
yeah.
gotta take Calavera away from them next year.
But yeah,
Yeah, it's expensive. Everything is expensive. Equipment is expensive. The upfront costs are extremely expensive, and then transporting it all the way to various events is also expensive. And unfortunately, there's just not enough money in this hobby at the moment, given its size, to support like multiple competitive stream teams doing stuff.
Yep.
Yep.
And again, the Casey was the one who asked this question from the Discord, and the last point also comes out is that like requires extremely knowledgeable and charismatic hosts that aren't also playing. Most people that are really good at the game and are fairly charismatic have some level of content creation associated with them. One way or the other, they usually want to be playing at events more than they want to be covering events.
Except for Nick.
Nick is awesome. Nick does great work. We need more Nicks in the world.
It's true. I think there's
Next question.
exactly enough Nicks. We need more people like Nick.
Fair.
I don't know that we can handle
More Knicks.
multiple Nicks.
This is true. I don't think there's
They
enough.
would become
outright.
friends, and then it would be disastrous.
Yeah, we might end up with an unwieldy Archon there.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. B. Watson has the next question in chat, which is for Innis. What was the rationale behind the repulsor tank, and to what extent was the choice motivated by playing on GW terrain? Would you consider it a viable tech piece in a player-placed terrain event? Congrats on the major win.
I mostly just wanted to make everybody think repulsors were good. So the repulsor was there because there's a bunch of stuff in the meta right now that can be very good at dealing with Desolation Marines, and they're kind of a core part of the army, and that they're there to force your opponent to interact with you, right? So as the Space Marine player, your secondaries aren't what they used to be. You're definitely still relying on brute force, and brute force can be played around, which means because your opponent can just play passive secondaries and just rack up the score, play the your primary game. The Desolation Marine's goal is to constantly whittle down their resources to the point where they can't just do that for free, and eventually they have to do something, which you can see bore out in the stream games I played, where against all three of my opponents, I just ground down their resources to the point where they eventually had to do something, punish them for doing something in the game. That's the core gameplay loop. What the repulsor does is it says that I don't have to deal with you doing that to me on my resources that make you do the thing. So you can't dive in my Desolation Marines with Shroud Runners or with a Night Spinner, or you can't Stormboy Watch charge them turn one. I don't know why you do that, but if you were psychotic and you wanted to, it's a theoretical option. If we played like Death and Zeal, right? It's also a ton of guns. We were running a Gladiator Reaper. Unironically, John Lennon played 3 in his Cherokee list, I want to say, because he couldn't find something else, right? But he did play 3. They were good. The Gladiator Reaper gets a little bit more on the heavy weapon side, but and it's a little bit longer range on a few of its guns. But the Repulsor is broadly more shots. It loses a little bit on the AP side and not as many heavy weapons. It gains a twin las cannon, a transport capacity, 4 wounds, which is, not nothing. It maintains access to a fallback and charge stratagem. It's got a -2 to charge stratagem. It's got an indirect hunter killer missile, which with a free reroll to hit and potentially getting stacked and buffs on it from things like the Tech Marine and target protocols, which don't always have another target in the list. You can stick a ton of buffs on this. It allows you to use the Tech Marine on it while the Contemptor goes and operates independently, because the Tech Marine can operate independently. The Contemptor can operate independently, and you can then have pressure on 2 sides of the board with a very difficult to kill unit. An army like Eldar has a lot of problems killing a toughness 8 vehicle that can overwatch anything reasonable without committing a lot of resources. It took, and I think I said it took 1 damage in games over the weekend. I was actually slightly wrong. It took 1 damage against David, and it took, I think, 6 damage against the Tau guy who picked it as the target for his Farstalker kin band and did 6 damage to it with the bloody rerolling the wound damage 3 gun on it. So it took 7 damage all weekend. That was it. It doesn't die. It very consistently sits there. The amount of resources your opponent has to put to killing a vehicle like that in an Iron Hands army means you lose the game if you try, because you slam into this, the drop pod slams back, and then I have stuff and you don't, because it's going to take enough points to kill this thing. In any matchup where it's not needed, you can strategic reserve it. It's then just another Gladiator, and you paid 70 points for the privilege. It was fantastic. I don't think there's any terrain format where I wouldn't consider it. It was great in that it hides on GW terrain, but on almost any WC board, you can probably strategic reserve it pretty well. And if you're not, you're doing it for the same purpose. A lot of the time, it screened my backfield and threatened and never shot, or it fired like the twin las cannons on turn 5. You don't need that much damage in an Iron Hands army. You get to play a ton of utility. Go and play that utility and win the games because of it. If you don't want to run it, you don't need it. Like 100%. You could just play 5 more Desolation Marines and then use the other 30 points somewhere else. But sometimes it's too much of a good thing. It makes your nest even more diveable. It's difficult to sometimes fit 15 models in a place where they can be lieutenant rerolls. The third code can be sketchy for that reason. Pick your poison. If you want more, run more. If you want to try it. Give it a go. It's good fun. Also consider double impulsors on WC terrain if you're playing them, because Desolation Marines coming out of an impulsor is quite funny.
That's fucking threat range, bro. And that shit is
it's really good.
You get to go super far.
One thing I will say is it's not for the Desolation Marine matchup. If your Desolation Marines are firing at my Desolation Marines, I am probably winning, because my forward pieces are going to get to you if you're not killing them. don't fire Desolation Marines at Desolation Marines if your plan is to win the game. Fire them at Land Speeders and Vanguard Veterans. Don't fire at Desolation Marines. They don't matter enough. They're not going to kill you fast enough. And you're not going to kill the Vanguard launcher until like turn 3 of doing that, which is the only thing that matters.
Trust me, I tried this.
Yeah, it sucks, doesn't it? Right, what's next?
All right.
Which armies are you looking forward to seeing their indexes? Which do you think will be the most powerful? Which is from John.
Drukhari, give me the fucking boats.
I have loved the shit out of playing CSM. I'm removing sub-factions means that Emperor's Children's dead, though, and I'm not super excited about attaching Abaddon to 10 Terminators and herduring up the board again. That was fun for like 6 months and I'm kind of over it now. But if Possessor hype, I'll be pretty excited. Like CSM, I'm like soft excited for. World Eaters, this feels like before the book came out, maybe I'll eat my words again, but I'm just like rather confident they'll be shit. And then, but the one that I miss terribly and I really want to go back to is Drukhari. I want Drukhari to be good so fucking badly. That's the one I'm most looking forward to seeing.
Tyranids. I'm going to steal it from Innis. I'm running away. I just want Tyranids to be good.
Reasons?
Man, I love bugs. I love all the new bugs. I love every bug. All bugs all the time. I'll play bugs. It makes me happy. Drukhari is like a close second, but Anthony just kind of exposed on it for a while, and I don't want to also say Drukhari.
Jeremy?
For me, I mean, Dark Angels is the
2021 ancient history, mate.
I know.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, Dark Angels is always going to be my answer to that because they were my first army. But realistically, AdMech, because of how shittily designed their codex was in 9th, I'm really hoping that they figured out how to make that army work this time around. Because that, yeah, I want to see what they do. Really, I'm looking forward to having like 1,000 pages of indexes in front of me and just flipping through massive.
Make that motion again,
violently.
closer to the chest.
Are you guys planning to do how are you guys going to do this with your WTC teams? Like when the index is dropped, you all get on a group call and bullshit, or you look at it as individuals so you don't want to hear the idiot's thoughts?
So actually the way that I've done it, because why not? We've got 5 coaches, we've got 14 players. We have divided up the factions and basically said we have 8 traveling players and then 6 backup players.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, you said 5 coaches and then 4 players, and I was like,
no, 14 players.
Oh, that makes way more sense. I thought you said 4. So I was like, man, you're going to have a fucking hell of a time.
Yeah, no. Because of the way that travel and selected players have performed in the past, we always select backups. So we have 14 players, we have 5 coaches, 4 of whom are going to be traveling to the WTC, but we have divided up the codexes amongst everyone. So when they drop and be like, you go look at Space Marines, you go look at AdMech, you go look at Drukhari, come back and tell me what works in these books, and we're going to see what meshes and where the relative power levels sit out.
I could do that, but I'm only going to trust my interpretation.
Sorry, what?
Okay, I was just saying, we could do that, but I'm only going to trust my interpretation, so it's easier to just do it myself because I'm going to be doing it for work anyway.
That makes sense. I was like, surely you have one person looking at Drukhari, right? Like, you don't need a whole bunch of perspectives on that one. You have Ridvan.
We only need the one looking at Drukhari.
Yeah.
You can't trust Ridvan to be objective about that codex, though.
No. He will come to me with a build, and I will say, show me how it works in the context. I'm not getting big-brained with a build right now.
Yeah, as for myself, it's actually Votan because I can't wait to see the beam playing.
It's respectable.
No, I'm looking forward to seeing Nids for the same reasons, Nate.
I want to see the Lord of War thing that I keep hearing rumored about. Like, I want to see this Lord of War that they've been talking about.
I hope the Neuro Tyrant's a Lord of War.
I hope
he's so tiny. He's like the
he?
size of a hive tyrant. He looks like
he's
maybe
like
the
same size as the
Tyrant.
Winged Prime, I think, which is like a 60-0 base.
Yeah,
Maybe
So-
he's like smaller than the Screamer Killer.
I hope he comes out.
not Lord of War size.
Oh no, he was in the box. You saw him already. Never mind. Let's say I hope he comes out and he's just like on a night base and it's just.
I would love that.
That would be funny.
fucking huge.
No, so I really want to see GSC because GSC are a faction I don't think GW have ever gotten their faction identity right. They have never felt like so like from the 7th book to the 8th index to the 8th book to the 9th book, they have had no consistency as far as what GSC are about, right? In the 7th book, it was all about disappearing back into reserve with every unit, juggling off back and forth on the board, regenerating models as you did it. In 8th index, it was all about like a hard alpha with combat. In the 8th book, it was about like aberrance, I think. And then like wrapping and charging out of deep strike with a lot of consistency with one unit, but not a lot of units. And then in the 9th book, it's a shooting book. There's been no like stable direction through it other than they show up on the board, which means that there's a lot of space for them to do another new cool thing with them. I don't think crossfire is a particularly suited mechanic for the way the codex should play. And I think there's a lot of space there for them to do something really cool with it. So I'm looking forward to seeing GC. And then obviously NIDS is, what I'll be playing it to see if they're viable in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I'm going to get really excited about Drakari. They're going to come out, they're going to be super OP, and then Sean's going to take them from me 3 weeks before the event. And I'm going to fucking throw my head through a wall.
Or Harpstone will decide he wants them.
No. Jack doesn't get to take my armies. He can bother the prospects.
The next question is for Anthony. Is Anthony going to try and win a golden ticket for Sigmar now to flex on nerds?
I'm pretty sure I could do it at this point, by the way. But that's partially because that game's not that hard and that community is not super developed. So, yeah, it is what it is. It's not been around that long. The community, like games that have not been around as long, have smaller competitive communities and don't develop as quickly. We see it in 40K. If a League Pro came to this game with the same level of intensity, they would shit down our throats. Like, just is what it is.
Luke G has a series of questions, and I'll just start with the first one. Do you think that vehicles in 10th are going to be a lot stronger than currently, given what we've seen from the power level?
Probably not.
A lot of shrugs. That makes sense.
Depends on points. Depends on army rules.
Do people-
The scaling and toughness.
That's how terrain works.
Do people remember how hyped people were for a vehicle edition at the start of 9th, and that didn't really
It
develop?
kind of
never
was.
tire, baby.
Edition?
We kind of have had a vehicle edition. I'm not gonna lie. This is like the best vehicles I've ever been this edition.
Oh wow, vehicles have been really shit historically. Then
We've had like raiders, plague burst crawlers, iron
Void
striders, void weavers, both
You-
sets of planes,
I don't know.
Nemesis dread knights, all be the best unit in the game. For all of the buggies have been like the best. All the best units in the game have been vehicles this edition.
I don't know that I'm quite that one.
Armigers.
Raiders
Is
were
that
not.
because they were vehicles, though?
Yeah, Raiders
No,
weren't.
but
Raiders
They
weren't the
are
best unit.
vehicles.
Raiders
They are
weren't the
vehicles.
best unit in Drakari. They
They-
were just
no, they weren't.
delivering
They were
the best
very
unit.
good, right?
You very easily could have done that with Venoms, though.
Yeah, but they're still vehicles. You try playing your Drakari with no raiders and no venoms.
Sure, I'm just saying, like that's a
Yeah.
product of Drakari.
I would
being
argue
great.
that this edition, more than any other, has been defined by vehicles.
Yeah, that's probably true. I'm just saying that, like, that means in the past vehicles have
I
been.
mean,
really
like, this
bad.
is me going back to like 5th Ed. Like, they were terrible and like, so like, I didn't play very well in 5th. So, like, for my competitive experience of like 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, this is the best they've ever been.
Yeah, I will
and, like,
say
consistently
that
one of the best units.
the NID rule, the army-wide like adaptive thing, looks like it'll just like shit your opponent's pants in deployment every time. It'll be like, "What do you have a whole bunch of? Sucks to suck, bitch." All right, here we go.
It works out great for Deathwatch, right now.
I mean, it could if that army was better.
So let's wait and see. What's next?
Some of these questions are going to be hard to answer, Luke. For newer players, can you guys explain how gameplay changes when you've got characters embedded in units as opposed to the current system of 9th? I don't think we know yet.
I
I'm sure I'm going to be able to screen less stuff.
Yeah. And then lastly, a stats question. Okay.
I'll field this real quick because I've already read it a couple times.
Sure.
Basically, what he's looking to know is, as we continue to expand our data collection, how are we going? Have we given any thought to using the info for filters beyond veteran or newcomer? And the answer to that is that as we gather more data, we're going to change how those filters work and how those filters are defined. Rather than being X number within the data set, it'll probably be X number over the last 6 months, 12 months to see how often is this person playing, not how many times have they played in our collection. Because when we started out, we'd only been collecting for a few months. So that, someone who went to 6 events in 3 months is probably a pretty proficient player or just, a masochist.
Yeah, we're going to add more filters as time goes on, like more facets of ways to analyze and look at the data.
Yeah, exactly. The reality is that at the end of this edition, the current data that we've collected is going to be used to prep for the next edition. We're not going to roll actually. I'll answer this right now because I've gotten a couple questions about it. CRS, ELO, faction rankings will all be reset once the edition launches. Sorry, anyone who's been enjoying sitting at the top, you got to earn it again in 10th.
Yep.
I still stand by the fact that we should maintain a permanent one that tracks forever. But
We could. It's doable.
Look at it. Yeah.
We would just
it would
remove
be
the
nice to know who
faction,
the best
primary
player of all
faction
time
bit.
is,
Oh
just
man, we'd have to
forever,
like.
but just
It would
remove
be
the faction bit from that
complicated
one,
for
but it's fine.
CRS, not for ELO.
ELO, it's simpler. Yeah.
CRS would be complicated because you use faction as an offset for a lot of stuff.
You just reset the faction data at the new start, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but
you just
if the
use new
faction
data on
definitions
it?
fundamentally change,
Sure, but you just when you redo the update, you reset
I
the
see what you're saying.
faction
Yeah.
level
You
with all
basically
the
say like this
players,
is the new
CRS.
list of fractions.
Yeah, so like you
can
start a
do
new
that.
faction list, but your starting point stays the same.
Yeah,
That
you
makes
just
sense.
basically
That would be
freeze
better.
the old thing in Amber and then like
Yeah,
add
exactly.
modifications to it from the
And
old
we should
one,
definitely
new
host
ones.
those because Frontline don't do a very good job of that.
Oh, I'm going to build an archive page that'll show this is the previous editions.
The next question is, how do you successfully monetize your hobby? From Martine.
You generally don't. Best you can do is break even most of the time, unless you genuinely spend all of your time on your hobby, and then it becomes a full-time job. But
Like in
actually monetizing the
really good
hobby,
at TikTok.
I mean, I was even before I was coaching, I was pretty close to break even with store credit, but that took a bunch of winning.
And like living in America, it's not a thing outside of America.
Yeah, sure. But I'm just saying, like here, like
but you're
fine,
breaking even
right?
on the hobby. You're not making money off of the hobby.
Sell terrain, yeah, that's one way to do it.
Yeah,
yeah. Commission painting is a way to make money off it, but they all require you to like
commission paint, 3D print.
If you hear like, I think Scari's had a couple interviews on this topic, and basically he talks about how you have to like, it's like a 40+ hour a week grind to make sure that your hobby is being monetized appropriately to make money off of it. The next question is from Dan F, which is for me, which is what will it take to get Nathan on the Sigmar train? Somebody's finding a way for me to get more time to hobby or sending me a fully painted army. That would be the way to do it, guys. I don't have any more time for any more hobbies at this point. I barely have time for 40K. Grant says, how does the Stat Check team feel about parasocial relationships now that they've gotten a little bit bigger and have more internet strangers interacting with them / watching them?
Probably not changed for me for the past 5 years. More people say hi now because I'm more notable, but it's probably been fine.
I missed the question. What was that?
Parasocial relationships. So people who recognize you or know you from this or other content that you've created, and as we grow, more and more people know you, recognize you. I mean, you're with Art of War, so it's less applicable, but at the same time, how do you feel that has changed and evolved, and how do you interact with that?
Oh, it's been great. People are usually super cool. Sometimes people think I'm in the Art of War house, which is funny. They're like, "Oh, I love the streams you guys do," and I'm like, "Thanks, bro." But like,
it's stolen valor over here.
Yeah, but besides that, like everyone's pretty cool about it generally. I haven't had anyone get weird with me yet, except like one specific instance when I played in a tournament in the Midwest, and someone was like, "Fucking Art of War guys," and then I like threw him in the dumpster. So like, it didn't.
You just backed up his opinion.
I mean, like, I was super nice to him during the game and gave him a whole bunch of takebacks as I skull dragged him, but yeah.
I don't have a lot of these. I don't know. I think I get recognized less than Innes and Anthony because I'm not as good of a player as either of them. So people will say like, "Oh, I like the show," mostly after they see like the objective markers and then realize who I am more than anything else.
Yeah, I've been recognized more and more at tournaments, but it's also a mix of running tournaments, and people just kind of gotten to know me. But I talked about this last week when I went to the tournament in Trois-Rivières, which is fairly far from where my normal haunts. Like 3 people who I played who I didn't personally know recognized me, and the second player that I played was even just like, "Hey, I'm going to get a free coaching session." I kind of chuckled because I was like, "Okay, so you're going to this with a defeated strategy," but we played for
so
points.
You're just like mentally writing down the W.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like some of that too has to come down to like you get like there's not like stat check jerseys yet, right? Like when I go to a game, it's very clear
Who
that
you
I
are.
am in Art of War. So
Yeah.
especially since they made jerseys that are like separate for those that are like active coaches. So it's not like that guy has played a game on the East Coast in the last 10 years like the jersey used to be.
Yeah, no, it is something that is definitely unique.
Yeah.
Or as McDougal likes to put it, how did you get that again?
Oh, poor Dukes.
And then, yes, Alex, I do get more kettles than the other stat check members. Yes, that is a
Weird.
thing that happens.
Microwave tea, man.
I do sometimes still just
Remember,
to
guys,
annoy
send
people.
money to the Nathan Flights and Kettles Fund.
I use that kettle every day, basically, just so people know.
Proud of
Brian asks, "How does it feel to scam one of your good friends live on the internet?" I'm assuming
Well,
he's
me and Dave
asking
aren't that good
Innes.
friends.
I was gonna say, I'm sure he felt a lot better about it after you went over to his finalist opponent and fucking pulled him out a win, you cunt.
Typhus.
Brian,
Is,
Brian,
go ahead.
it's a dice game. You should have played around it.
Innes isn't even
Typhus.
good. He's not that fast. So I don't know. I got nothing.
I got
Typhus
that
is-
momentum, baby.
It's hard to stop. That's just what it is.
Juggernaut.
Typhus
What
is
did Typhus
asking us a question. Are there any Canadian team events we could conquer in us?
Canhammer Team Tournament. Come on down.
We can have teams.
We should do like the team circuits or team tournament circuit next year where we just do like Talavera, Canhammer, like we just take the boys and we just go.
Have you heard we're doing French nationals so we can make Nas the French captain?
Yes, that's awesome. Hell yes. Is that allowed? Is that how the rules work?
I don't know.
We can find
We're
out.
gonna find out.
What's like the floor? Like how few French people can we have on the team and still pick their captain?
Actually, no, you should ally with Shintil and make him the captain of the Italian team.
We can do that too. We just go
Yeah,
to
we-
all of them and just like ruin the WTC next year. And be like,
If you run a qualifier team, we will help you buy your team.
Pay for our flight, pay for their flights, pay for their food, accommodations, and they
yeah,
are
you'll
your
make your
mercs.
national team.
ANZTC?
Oh, that's the big Aussie turn. Yeah, we should go do that. That would be funny too.
And then Grant asks, favorite Tyranid bugs / models / data sheets.
I mean, it's
No,
got to be
I-
the
I-
Spyro,
right.
right? I was gonna say.
It's the
I-
Swarm Lord, specifically the Swarm Lord, but
The Swarmlord is a nice model.
Mm.
I
me
like
and the Swarm Lord did some things with double moves.
of the non-Hive Tyrant models. I really like the Demicharon model. I just
have
like that
3 of them.
model.
They're gorgeous.
Yeah.
I
I
really like the Parasite Mortrix. I think that's a really good model.
Oh, that's an
Yo,
awesome
I was
model.
very happy
Real
with that
quick, am I the only person that thought that thing was going to be like tyrant sized when they showed the preview
Yeah.
and was like giga confused when I saw it in real life the first
It's
time?
a Tyranid warrior, and it's like skinnier. It's
Everybody,
funny.
whenever I deployed like the Flyrant and the Parasite, was like, so that's the Flyrant, right? So the point of the Flyrant, but so that's the Parasite? I'm like, it's a Flyrant, dude. Like, you just a Flyrant before? Like, where's your Parasite? I'm like, this thing. Oh,
That
what?
little shithead.
Yeah, it's a small. I
All
straight
right.
up-
Nurgle Matt speaks French. Should we boost Nurgle Matt to be the French captain?
Yes. All right. Were there any good questions in chat? I'm kind of having a hard time parsing it real quick. Innes,
Do you think
what
it's
is
possible-
your
yeah.
Iron Hands color scheme? Damn it. What is
Wait,
your
sorry,
Iron
do that
Hands
one first.
color scheme, Innes?
Okay, so you spray it with Gracier, then you drown it in Apothecary White, and then like anything that pulls too bad, like take it off. Otherwise, it like makes a really annoying film that you have to like scrape off and redo it. Just like dab it with a sponge and anything that's too much, and then get the biggest brush you own, dip it in some white scar, rub a bunch of it off, or sorry, Korak white, rub a bunch of it off, and then like just beat the shit out of your model with a dry brush, and then that's the white done. It looks okay at a distance on anything that's not a vehicle. On a vehicle, it looks really shit. So battle damage the shit out of it with sponges, and paint some like
your
cracks and
matches look
stuff.
good. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the infantry, then that you're done on the infantry, and then like paint details with like traditional buff painting.
And it
The
looks really good on
shoulders are black, and then dry brush gray, and then I do white. I do blue on like any detail that's not, and then I do bases as a layer of blue, another layer of lighter blue, Mordant Earth, and then Dry Brush Blue, blue, light blue, white, and done. Black rooms. Fury Seals get painted with red things, and they'll be red in the army.
Makes sense.
And then Contact Lost has a question, which is, do you think it is possible to have flavorful armies that play in accordance to their fluff and still have a balanced game without power creep?
No. Yeah, of course you can. Why would you not be able to?
God, that Drakari Codex was so good at A, but not B.
Yeah. I think actually GW has designed some codexes that are very good at one of these things and not very good at the other of these things.
Oh, World
Sun's
Leaders.
Codex was pretty good.
World Leaders is
kind of power creepy.
Is it?
For like every codex that's not like A tier right now, does it not just lose to World Eaters?
If you like snip the secondaries, though, I feel like you're right. Like I meant like the book, right? Like when Drakari came out, they just fisted you. They could have played without 45 points and just murdered your head. Like
that's actually my favorite thing about the current meta is watching whenever a Drakari player bounces into a Death Guard player, and they're like, "This should be," and then they remember that like it's 1,500 points of Drakari, it's 25 of Death Guard, and you're like, "No, you just don't win ever."
You could have won that in the old days, but now where the Death Guard like start the game on 88, you're like, "Oh fuck!" Like we're not doing this.
And then there was a question in here about whether or not Angron can do his command phase buff when he's off the table.
No. We're not actually no answer. We're not answering you.
Yeah.
Ask it to you.
And then Tim G asks, any chance we could ever get the stats for how many weeks each faction had an overrep of 2 and 9th or something similar? Curious which army was longest.
We do have
I think we do have that.
Version, right,
we have a win rate, but I don't think we have an overrep version.
It's easy enough to do. Yeah. As we wrap up 9th and we wait for 10th, we're going to do a few retrospective deep dives with stats similar to how we did.
Articles.
Yeah. Well, also similar to how we did the deep dive stats takeover a couple weeks ago. We're going to do a couple more of those because people really liked those, apparently.
I imagine, if I had to guess, it's got to be Harley. Is just because they're.
By the way, I'm just going to very quickly share my screen.
Yeah.
Because I want you to take a look at what happens at the end of the. Towards the new meta, what happens to this little one here?
Anyone want to guess which one that is?
Oh man, I can't see it. It's so fuzzy, but that's definitely Iron Hands.
Just everybody's right here in the middle, in the like only kind of a problem. Like GSE is poking up, a bunch of armies are garbage, and then right about.
Oh man, Cultist Chen super chatted, so we're gonna switch to their question. Which I hope that's the person who draws the Cultist Chan thing on Twitter, because that would be kind of funny. How do you approach a game with a decent but not top player like an X and 1 guy? Teach, crush, bully. Do you think much about your influence on 40K culture?
All three at once.
I don't. Yeah. I definitely don't bully. I definitely just teach. But like, it's crush, I guess. But like, not. That's not really how I view that. I don't. Oh, this is a complex topic. So. I don't think that players that don't play as much are like entitled to points. Like I don't think you get points just for showing up in a game. You get your 10 for paint. You can hold on to those. But like I play the game super aggressively. I'm not changing how I play based on my opponent basically ever. Part of this is because of my background in other stuff where like when I was in Muay Thai, if I like sparred with a pro, I would expect to basically never land a hit and go home with a black eye. Or like when I was playing in WoW, when we like were playing threes, and if we played against like one of the teams that was going to win the Arena Cup that year, we just like didn't even land a stun lock, we just died. So like I think that experience should be similar in 40K, where when you play against one of the like pros, or in this case the literal professionals, it should be like an eye-opening experience to be like, oh, that's what the game is like. Because I think it's demeaning to the skill expression in 40K when you get to be like, when you can walk out of a game basically where you played a pro as someone that doesn't play that much and be like, oh, well, I took 70 off him, so it's fine. It's like, oh, he just got lucky on dice. Like there's a lot of like narrative that can come out of that isn't actually productive for the whole. And I think that you should come away from those games having learned a lot, not scored a lot.
Yeah. And
sorry, it's worth saying you can crush somebody without holding the score down, just for what it's worth. Like A little proud, not a lot proud of a couple of my games at LVO where like I literally sat at the scoreboard and was like, right, I'm scoring 97. How do I make sure you never restrict that in any way, shape, or form? And then just never let them do anything that put them to 98. But they scored like my two opponents scored like a 91 and an 80 because I just like was like, no, you stay there. I'm scoring. I don't give a toss what you do on your side of the board. And it was like,
Oh yeah,
WC that doesn't work. But like I've definitely done
I
things
just
like
don't
that
play
with
the game that
GSC
way.
where I'm just like, you are going to stay just above water, but you're never ever moving. Just like choking someone out. I don't know if that's better. I definitely wasn't in a great headspace those two games, so I don't know how much fun that was. But I've definitely like there's kind of an aspect of it where at the end of the day, it's a social experience. You're theoretically social contracted in for 3 hours with this person. Um, it can feel a little crap to like end a game in an hour and a game in 45 minutes. I do it anyway because at the end of the day, part of a tournament is the endurance game, and I value me getting an extra half hour, 45 minutes, hour of break, go and get lunch, detox over my opponent's experience. And is that entirely fair? Maybe, maybe not. I also don't think it's fair to hold my opponent hostage in a game where they may or may not be having fun and may or may not have the slightest chance in hell. So there's a lot of different directions you can take this, and it depends on your personal priorities. At the end of the day, for me, these are open tournaments. I can't control who I play against. All I can control is what my experience comes out of it as. I will do my best to give my opponent the most enjoyable experience I can, but I'm not going to take a risk to my own personal end state of the game for my opponent's enjoyment.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, we all play those kind of games fairly frequently, and especially in the early rounds of a lot of tournaments.
Yep.
And it comes down to I don't pull my punches, but at the same time, this also happens when people recognize you. Like I had someone who's like I use again the example from Twitter where the guy's like, I'm getting a coaching lesson. I said we will play a full solid game here. You play your heart out. I want you to because I want a challenging game. But at the end of it, I'm more than happy to talk through where you went wrong.
I'll even like if someone like straight up just like feeds me their army turn 1 to 8-bound for no upside for them, I'm gonna be like, hey bro, back that shit up a little bit.
Yeah.
So you don't get like instant murder right now. Like I'm happy to like I'm very chill during the game, but also like I'm not gonna like not like if you just put a bunch of shit in charge range, I'm gonna kill you. Like
Yeah, there's only so many times you'd be like, hey, don't do that. If you say, hey, don't do that, and they do it anyway, like you're going to do it, right?
so many times I've been like, hey, just so you know, this can happen. And then the person's like, nah, it'll be fine. Jeremy probably watched this happen to all his does, where I was like, hey, watch out for this. And person was like, nah, I got it. It'll be all right. And then it just wasn't.
They didn't have it.
All right.
When that push Spaceless play around one where I was like, everything you put past this line dies this turn if you do this. And he's like, I think it'll be all right. And then everything past that line and a little bit beyond it went down.
Yeah.
So
We have two last questions, and that's it.
Knock them out.
Sam has both of the questions. So at the higher level, how much of a matchup is
evaded that we're dodging as well? So I don't know.
I'll look for it later. At the higher level, how much of a matchup is already predetermined based on army and mission versus how much can be influenced and changed because of player skill? It's another deep question.
I think not a lot. It's like a lot asterisk. Shit happens in games like all the time. So like you need to be very aware of what your outs look like, what their mistakes look like, and how dice can influence A and B. And if you don't do that and you just let the game proceed on rails, a lot of a high level game will pivot off of like what the army and mission is. Because if you're both good and don't make any mistakes, which has literally never happened, I hate when people say like assume my opponent makes no mistakes because that's not real. But you have to be able to see when that happens, and if you don't, the game will proceed on rails, and a lot of those games can feel deterministic, but they aren't. That's my take anyway.
Yeah, I would say more than anything else, terrain will impact that just as much as those two. Army mission terrain is like a combination where on some terrain a matchup will feel hopeless, and some terrain it will feel completely like automatically winnable. So there's so many variables in 40K that it's safer to just assume that everything is a little bit closer to even than you think it is. Like the worst matchups, like the worst example I have is like the Industrial Affinity Gene Circle versus World Eaters right now. It's probably the closest thing there is to a hard counter in the current meta, and I still don't think that's unwinnable for World Eaters. It's really goddamn hard, but there are things that can go wrong. Anthony, what do you feel about that? Like that general matchup? Because I would say that's like I don't think so. Like World Eaters versus GSC, I think is the closest to like a rock paper scissors right now, like the Industrial Affinity version.
Yeah. Like if I play against the 30 bike build with 80 Neos, almost terrain agnostic. I haven't played it on GW yet. I'm pretty fucking cooked. Like,
yeah,
I can, especially from a singles perspective. I don't think I'll ever win that matchup in singles. I think I can drag it closer in teams, but like, I think the problem with very specifically that matchup though is that like now in this context we're talking about like 4 people. We're talking about me playing like you, Myson, Eric. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
like
and it's like you couldn't design
me,
a more perfect couldn't design a more perfect matchup. Like it's a 24-inch range shooting army against a 23-inch threat range melee army. Like it was always gonna suck, right?
Yeah.
And there's just not that, and it's like a 24-inch reserve army that gets to be there and doesn't have to fuck about with your pre-game moves and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it has blips, right? That's like the extra thing.
The blip is the fuck you, like nail in the coffin. Like that matchup's winnable if blips don't do what they do, but because they do, it's just like, all right.
Imperial Knights versus Master Arts as well with Rage Iron Hands is another example. But there is fail cases in every game.
You can get scammed in that
one.
You
can get scammed in any game. You can just bounce off 4-ups, right? It is always possible, which means that it's always a little closer to the middle than you think it is. That's the real takeaway from this, is that even an unwinnable matchup is still winnable because sometimes your opponent's Warlock perils and blows up on turn 1, failing Jinx and giving you an oath point, things like that.
Thanks, bro.
And then Sam has the second question, which will probably be the last question because Evader doesn't know how to use threads.
Put it in next week, Evader.
We're going to put it in next week's. You played in a tournament game on the top tables, and after the tournament, you realized one of your opponents has gotten an army rule wrong that had a moderate impact on the game. What do you do?
Did I win or lose?
Start with did you lost, since that's probably the more
my opponent as an adult and probably live with it is honestly the answer, unless it was like turn 5 they played a rule wrong that won them the game. We gotta go and have a quick chat and talk about reconsidering the score. Turn 1, neither of us caught it. It had a marginal impact. We're probably living with it. There's a very real how bad was it? If I found out my opponent was just playing luck dice and they weren't Harlequin pure, we're gonna be reversing the score, right? Just stuff like that.
But if it's something where they are making a consistent error that neither of you catch, and it is not malicious, it is not intentional, it is just lack information and they've never been corrected on it, you have a chat with them afterwards when you find out that they were wrong and be like, hey, want to let you know about this. I'm not looking for anything because it's impossible to do intent. But if it's one of these things where they've played that rule correctly every other game that event, and then in that one game they play it wrong to their advantage and you lose, we're going to have a bit of a chat.
The real answer is that you should probably talk about with your opponent, then TO and judge. Don't go to the TO and judge first because you'll come across as an angle shooting for a win. Be an adult in the room about it. Have a conversation, figure it out, and then move on.
Always look to resolve it with the other player.
If you're looking for a resolution that results in something changing, you have to involve your opponent first, then TOs and refs. Especially if they get agitated about it or something like that. You gotta go above. If it's a week after the event, tough shit, move on.
Oh yeah, if it's not within before awards, even
I'll be quite honest for the events that I run. If you come to me the day after with an issue, I will, and it's a valid issue. I will talk to the player about it, and I will say, hey, this is a warning. Just give you a heads up. Next event you're at, don't fuck this up.
Yeah.
If it's a week on, I'm not trusting your memory at that point, let alone
Well, and also it's one of these things where like most tournaments have the score is in. We've done prizing, we've done all of that. We're not going to reverse results. We're not going to change placings. We're not going to go open up that can of worms because, especially when it comes to at what point do you draw that line?
The only one I would
2
accept
days
that
out,
on
3
is
days
like
out.
if it's like a list issue, then like that you can go a little later with that stuff. Like if you just like find out on like 2 days later, guy had an illegal list, we're gonna talk differently, right? But this is about play mistakes.
Yeah.
It's always hard. It's always
There's never an
difficult.
ideal resolution is the reality of that.
The ideal resolution here is that you and your opponent can agree on what the actual game state outcome would have been. So, like, your opponent plays the Twilight Harlequins pile and consolidation is 3 extra instead of 2 extra, flips a primary, wins the game. You probably talk to the TO, get the score reversed, right? Your opponent did it wrong on turn 1, and they maybe were 5.5 away, maybe were 6 away. You're like, okay, fine. We don't know. We didn't check precisely. That's kind of the, I don't know. It's always going to be a fuzzy line because it's always based on 2 people, their intent, understanding of the game, and also their different expectations and your opposed parties in like what the resolution you're looking for as well.
Mhm.
It's just a bit of a mess, right? Like,
Yeah, it's always going to be a mess.
And there's not going to be a fit-all solution or answer to that question because mistakes exist on a spectrum, and can be like really small mistakes like in a set, or there can be really big mistakes or even like purposeful misreadings of rules. And those can all have different responses.
I lagged there in a really funny way where it said exist on a spectrum, lag like Innis, lag, which was real funny.
And then Illawoozle, we are none of us of the 4 of us like on the UTC like management committee to put guidelines into existence. You would have to talk to Goonhammer about that directly. And then Ethan's question was just, what do I need to do to write an article for Stat Check? I have some neat ideas. Honestly, just you can DM
Pitch
one
it.
of us and pitch the idea, and maybe we will accept it. Maybe we will decline it.
Yeah.
I think in theory that's my department, but yeah.
Shoot us an email.
So to address that, I am currently holding off on that until I get below 200 pounds because I am trying to lose weight. That's all. Almost there. 203 this morning. So
Good luck.
yeah.
Well done.
fucking almost.
I do think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm
That's it.
sorry. I got lag. Also, while we are like more connected, and I definitely agree that there needs to be some codified penalties in existence. Like I think that's a thing that needs to exist.
Yeah, it is. The challenge always comes down to assigning intent to a mistake.
Exactly.
one
Just down
off.
them all.
Yeah, sure. You can damn them all
Put
if you want.
TJ on their ass.
I will say
Terrible,
that like
terrible
in
move.
sports, like intent is something that is like taken into account some of the time. Like you can try to gauge whether somebody's trying to injure somebody or not with a play, and that probably just means that penalties need to scale. So like, be like a first kind of mistake. That's like the equivalent of a minor penalty for something in hockey, and that's like a yellow card in 40K. And then somebody does something obviously with intent to cheat, then they get like the equivalent of a game misconduct. Maybe that's a red card. Maybe that's a suspension from competitive events.
Yeah.
But, and I'm like for that. Like a lot of things in 40K need to be codified better because there's a lot of like in between things where 40K is both a competitive game, but also like a beer and pretzels game that exists in people's garages.
Yeah.
And we got to start taking questions here because we're at
I'm not
like
answering
over
that
2
question,
hours.
Brian.
We're not answering any more questions. I'm going to end the episode, as a matter of fact. Thanks, everybody, for watching. It's over 2.5 hours long of content.
Jesus.
There's a lot there. Thank you for the...
I'm sorry for
46
winning a super major. I won't do it again.
That's not why it took so long, Innis,
It
and don't
kind of
even
is.
try to say that.
He spent a 40-minute segment going over my 3 games that were interesting.
Yeah, but that's amazing. That's
I
amazing
know,
content.
but it's why it was a 2.5 40-minute episode because we didn't like take content out for that. Do the
Just hit the
plugs.
button. Oh,
plugs.
fine. Go to Patreon. You can spend $5 a month and you can get access to all of our bonus content into the Discord, which is a creative, like a really amazing place where it's chaotic and comforting.
You can read the live reactions to my games and to my game with David in real time as everybody writes me off on turn 1.
You can join in on fun TTS extravaganzas. Like we're going to do a 10th tournament eventually over TTS once the rules are released. You get access to all of our bonus content in advance, and you can watch Innis fondle his trophy in like various forms, I guess, possibly. Otherwise, drop us a
Trophy
like,
ASMR.
a comment, and a subscription. But most of all, please tell a friend about our content and have them come check it out. We would love for you to do that for us. I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Also,
This
we
has
offer
been
coaching.
Snatcher.
You should check that out, please.
Yes. Send us an email, get on the coaching train. Let Innis help you be the winness.